The meeting of the Monroe Township Board of Education will come to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May we have a roll call, Mr. Gorski?
Ms. Antelis. Mrs. Arminio.
Here.
Mr. Braverman.
Yes.
Mr. Chiarella.
Here.
Mr. Kaufman.
Here.
Mrs. Kolpanowicz.
Here.
Mr. Nothstein.
Here.
Mr. Poi.
Here.
Mr. Prezioso. Mr. Zarneski.
Here.
Madam Board President, you have a quorum present this evening.
Thank you very much. In accordance with the provisions of the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law, the Monroe Township Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof posted October 10, 2014, 1 at all schools, 2 Home News Tribune, 3 Cranberry Press, and 4 filed with the clerk of the municipality. And at this time, we will go to our student board members' reports, and I believe we have a new student board member with us this evening for the first time, a junior,
Yes,
Mr. Nicholas,
Yes,
right?
correct.
Thorny. Well, congratulations and welcome to the Board of Education.
Good evening, everyone. It's been a busy week here at the high school. It is Spirit Week, and the high school football team has their homecoming game this Friday at 7, so come out and support the Falcons. DECA chapter officers attended a leadership development conference today where they learned how to lead effectively and how to positively change themselves in order to make an impact within schools. The sophomores and juniors had PSAT testing today. The Monroe Township High School girls field hockey team is currently undefeated, so congrats to the girls and keep up the good work. The Green Fair took place this past weekend at Oak Tree School. While the weather put a damper on some fun activities like the bike rodeo, inside the gym there was a variety of other booths and fun activities for families to take part in while learning sustainable practices at the same time. And the Monroe Township High School Drama Club is putting on a fall showcase about great songs and scenes, so try to come out and enjoy the great show.
The Monroe Township High School will be holding its second annual Club Rush on Friday, October 17th, allowing students to learn more about the wide variety of clubs that the high school has to offer. Also, the Monroe Township High School Future Business Leaders of America Club, in conjunction with other MTHS clubs, is organizing a haunted high school event for the younger children in the district. Proceeds will be donated to the Mama Mare Breast Cancer Foundation in support of Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And to conclude the student report, just to introduce myself, my name is Nicholas Tharney, and I will have the pleasure of serving as the junior class's student board member. Thank you.
Thank you, and welcome again. Okay, we will go to the public forum. Anyone from the public wishing to speak to the agenda, please come to the microphone, give your name and address for the record, and we will adhere to our 3-minute time limit.
Of course. Mark Klein, 7 Crenshaw. The enrollment. There's a lot of rumors going around of how much overcrowding we have in the schools. Can you basically break down the schools and what the situation is? The reason why I bring that up is, I don't know if Mr. Chiarella was able to report on this from the planning board, but the development that was supposed to be built on Mount Mills and Spotswood Englishtown Road, which consisted of 529 apartments and condos. They took us to court, and the settlement was that based on a percentage of the commercial property that they get leased, they develop and get leased, they're allowed a certain percentage of these family units to be built. But the same builder is building on, put an application in for Perrineville Road and Route 33, which was turned down by the planning board. That's the one that they took to court. And the settlement on that was no restrictions. In other words, they can start, to my knowledge, and maybe Mr. Chiarella can explain it, to my knowledge, there are no restrictions, which means they can start building right away. So it's something that you're going to have to keep in mind along with all the developments in that part of town that they're building, I don't know what you're going to do for schools. So I don't want to take up your time now, but I'd like to get a breakdown of what the overcrowded situation is. And then when we come back into public forum later, I'll go down a breakdown of something that broke on the news today, which is very interesting. Thank you
Okay.
very much.
I don't think we have that information for us today at this meeting, the breakdown
No,
of,
I
okay,
can get that another time.
okay.
Madam?
Mr. Gorski?
Mr. Klein, today is October 15th. Today, we will conduct student counts through all of our schools and report the ASSA to the state. We're going to then update all of our enrollment studies with that very relevant new data.
Okay.
I could provide you with the district that we have on hand, but I don't have that
No, I'll
present
get
for
it in
right
the
now.
office.
Okay, thanks.
And just the last thing, which is part of this, is Perth Amboy, it was just announced in the home news today that they're going to build a high school for $190 million, paid for by the state. And we know what happened with New Brunswick, with their high school, with their elementary school. We know last year we needed expansions and new schools, and they do nothing for us. So that's something I'll bring up later on.
Okay,
Thanks, Mike.
thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Stephen Ryback, 23 Riviera. I'm a Board of Education candidate. I'd like to speak to, on page 16, Roman number 5, Board Action number 4. I proudly signed the recently circulated petition against redistricting as proposed because it represents a positive step forward for our citizens. It also demonstrates the need for a greatly improved line of communication between the school board and our community. We must amend processes that could potentially impact our schools to best ensure the board is consulting and brainstorming possible solutions with its community members, especially if the board creates an ad hoc committee which is told its input and expertise would help shape a recommendation. It's not enough to offer a yes or no vote to the members of this committee without a true voice at the table or use of its expertise when possible solutions are to be developed. This Board of Education must create a culture that embraces meaningful interactions and communication within the community. You are voted into office by the residents. Listen to stakeholders and prove to them that their input is valued. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public?
Robert Roach, 18 Muirfield Boulevard. I would just like to say that the young ladies who have always been the student representatives look very nice. And I'd just like to compliment the new young man there. Looks very professional.
Thank you. Thank you. It's our new dress code, right? Anyone else from the public wishing to speak?
Lou Masters, 9 McKellar Court. Since it is on the agenda, I was going to wait, but I've been reading a lot of this stuff on Facebook, and I've really, in my entire tenure on the board and being in town, I've never seen just a negative reaction to a community trying to do the right thing. I've been on the ad hoc since the inception of the ad hoc, which was 2 years ago. We've been doing this for 2 years. Prior to that, I was on the strategic committees that fed into the ad hoc, the community outreach, fiscal accountability with Michelle, a couple other people that are here. I was also on the board when we received the recommendations from the ad hoc. It went through Buildings and Grounds, or the committee that it had to go through, and then was processed through the board. The ad hoc committee just made recommendations to the board. They have no power. The board has the power. For 2 years, again, the ad hoc committee has been coming together. They've been gathering information. We've been touring schools. We've been talking about issues. We've been arguing about issues, working together, doing what we thought was right. And in the best interest of the schools in the town. We've had multiple tasks and recommendations along the way. I have all the meeting minutes. We did the stopgap measure. We did stuff like that. That was implemented, and it's helping with growth. And again, the overall the goal was to bring the community together and get some stakeholders involved and figure out what to do with this growth that we're experiencing. With the final the board that's coming around tonight, we have a big problem. And I think what's happening here is it's being used as a political tool by certain people in the community. It's not about children or growth. It's no longer about children or growth. It's about votes now. Plain and simple. If you don't want to hear it, that's what it's about. 2 years of the community coming together now and working hard is being called a sham. that it wasn't worth it. 2 years. And some of those people that are calling it a sham have only been on it for a couple months. For the sake of a campaign soundbite, people are willing to discount 2 years' worth of work by 20-something people. At one point, up to 27. 27 township community people coming together, making recommendations to try to improve the school district. That's all it was. The recs tonight from the ad hoc committee are simply requests for the board to be proactive, which everybody's always yelled at us, the board has never been proactive. Now we're trying to do that. We've always been called a reactive board, and too late. Now there's a chance to get ahead. I don't like to see kids being moved around. Schools are a community, they're a family. My kids are in a certain school. They love the kids they go to school with. I agree with that. You don't want to see this happen. I agree. But it's a chance right now to get ahead, even a little bit, of this growth we're experiencing. Now, some of these issues that we're talking about, Facebook, anti-social network that it is politically fueled fear-mongering, and it's getting in the way of what we have to do. The ad hoc committee made recommendations to do redistricting or to look into redistricting, and I think we have to try to work together and discuss it. Instead of all this BS that's going on Facebook, people complaining, telling lies, telling all kinds of wild stories about what's happening, I really think we need to come together as a community and talk this out.
Thank you, Mr. Masters.
Good evening, Chrissy Skirby, 8 Seminole Court. As a member of the ad hoc committee, I stand here tonight and want to express my support for the school district. Along with the other parent groups represented here tonight, we work tirelessly in the name of the children to provide the very best for our schools. We are asking the board to look closely at the proposed redistricting plan. We feel that the numbers represented in this report do not take into consideration the growth projections for Monroe on the Mill Lake Woodland side of town. Although student enrollment dropped by approximately 35 to 40 students at Mill Lake Woodland this year, the schools do not have the capacity for 225 new students, along with students coming in from a 500-unit condo development going up on Mount Mills Road. Ross Haber stated during his presentation to the ad hoc committee that he did not factor in the 500-unit condo development into his plan he presented to us. We are asking the board to have this development considered when coming up with a redistricting plan. We do not want to be here 2 years from now asking you to reduce the class sizes at Mill Lake and Woodland because the plan backfired. Additionally, we do not think it is right to split up the 3rd grade between Mill Lake and Woodland School. Lastly, this plan does not address the immediate need of the middle school. Students are overcrowded in classrooms at the middle school, which poses huge issues around the lunch period. The board needs to focus on a solution immediately for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Good evening. Ira Tesler, 11 Elliott Drive. I am not a candidate for Board of Ed. I thought you was funny. I find it very interesting that now that we're in election season, people use issues like redistricting for their own personal agenda. I was on the ad hoc committee. Mr. Rybeck voted for the redistricting plan. So why would he sign a petition against it? That's kind of odd. Thanks.
Anyone else from the public? No, we're not going to have a debate. Okay. Do you have something new to add to Mr.?
Sure enough.
Oh, okay.
Mark Klein, 7 Crenshaw. Chrissy, the 529 unit on Mount Mills, I believe that's going to be on the back burner because of...
Mr. Klein, you addressed the Board of Education.
Okay, I'm
Not
sorry.
Ms.
Because they're going to have to build and lease commercial property. But if what really happened at the planning board, and I'm going to source all the information, the one that you have to concern yourself with is the same builder building on Perrineville Road to Route 33. That's going to be 749 family units. That's in the part of town where all the growth is. That's where all your family communities are being built. So you're going to affect Applegarth and Oak Tree. And that's where we really got to do something. I think Oak Tree, you have enough room that you can expand it. Applegarth, I don't know what you're going to do, and you're probably going to need new schools. I'm just going to go over what I have now, and then I'll leave you alone. knowing that Perth Amboy now is approved for $190 million to build a high school. We know when this school was being built, New Brunswick was building a high school. It was $187 million. I believe the capacity was about 200 more students than our school. And they were at $187 million. And this board built the high school under what the budget was. I think it came in a little over $120 million. And people complained. Also in New Brunswick, there were 3 elementary schools built, totally paid for by the state. Something I've complained about all along is enough is enough. We need schools, we need expansions. The state has to work with us. My last statement is, and I've mentioned this many times, all children, no matter where they live, are worth the same and should be treated equally. If the state is able to spend billions of dollars on the 31 Abbott Title I school districts each year, and then also pays for their new schools, we should receive our fair share of school funds, school aid, and we should receive a major amount of money towards our new schools and expansion. And I don't know what we have to do. That the Senate 2307, that was a smokescreen. That was done for votes, and not here, done for votes at the state. Something has to be done. My opinion, and the parents who are here are going to disagree with me, is you cut what we don't need. You're here to be educated. You're not here to play sports. You're not here to do music, and you can boo me if you want. When the state starts to see, thank you, when the state starts to see that we can no longer support these programs on the back of taxpayers, maybe they'll get off their tails and do something. But all we have proven in not only the years before I got on the board, the years I was on the board, and the years now is that we could run a highly successful school district without hitting the state for money. I'm done, I heard. Thank you.
I will say, though, was that both the high school and Oak Tree School was done on time and under budget. Absolutely. Yes. Anyone else from the public? We're going to just take turns in a circle?
Oh, sorry. Lou Masters, 9 Michaela. Just to capitalize on what Mark said, in case you don't know, there's a new bill in front of the Assembly, 3724. Dan Benson asked me to kind of talk about it so we can draw up some support. What it's doing is it's trying to add, what do they call it? They have a nice little name for it. Converted Development Assistance Aid. All the developments that were converted because of the Sarno Act, school districts will get a certain amount of money up to what they cost per student times the students that are coming out, the realistic numbers that are coming out of there. This just went in September 22nd, I believe. He's been asking a lot of us. We're supporting it, my group. D'Angelo's on it, Linda's on it, Sweeney's on it. I think even Bonnie's on it. So they're all trying to push this through to give aid to places like Monroe, like what Mark said, that are kind of getting the shaft because of some of these converted developments. So again, 3724, it's something good to look up and maybe write your legislators and really push. It's something we could use. It'll directly, I mean, if you look at some of the numbers we're talking, this would be tens of millions of dollars that would come our way. Okay? Thank you.
Does anybody have any more comments to the agenda?
David Cugini, 5 Ellingham Avenue. I am kind of new to all of this. I'm an assistant principal out on Staten Island. I would disagree with Mark in terms of extracurricular programs. I think we do need to keep them, and I think you have a very difficult job. In regards to redistricting, my daughter just started at Mill Lake. She's been there in her first grade. She loves Mrs. Worth, and I would just hate to imagine the idea of students that are going to be in the third grade that's split, half going to one school, half going to another school, and the sense of community that's kind of torn apart. She loves where she goes. I think it's really important to keep that synergy. And we just built this beautiful new building. And the idea that we're sitting here and talking about we need to build more new buildings, then this was something that came up when we had, I believe, the school board elections. Where is the school board's voice when we're talking about all of the new developments that are going on, and how are we working in collaboration with that to make sure that we're not coming back every 2 years asking the taxpayers for more money or putting up by bond, and again, I might not know all the facts, so I apologize for anything I'm not accurately capturing. But the idea that we're continuing to come back 2 years after building this unbelievable facility to ask for more space, let's build up another place, how are we taking care of it, and how are we making sure we have maybe the accurate data that was referenced earlier so that we're not making this same conversation 2 years down the road.
Thank you. I just want to say, too, the Board of Education's responsibility is to educate every child that comes into this district. We have nothing to do with the development of this township. That is a municipal government. They have their own rules and responsibilities. We do have a member of the board, Mr. Chiarella, who's on the planning board as a private citizen, not as a board member. We also have Mr. Masters, who is on the zoning board. So we're working with the township. They understand our difficulties. But again, it's two different governmental entities, and we have our rules that we have to follow, and they have theirs.
And that makes complete sense. However, to think that one obviously doesn't marry really importantly with the other. And again, I can't say that I've gone to all the zoning board meetings to say who's been there and taking attendance, but I know that was a really direct comment that was made out to the board and to the at least the elected officials last year, and no one wanted to say that they would be the ones to go to those zoning board meetings. And again, I just think it's really incumbent, especially because schooling seems to be one of our largest issues, and we must be doing something right. Our township continues to grow, and I'm sure my time is up, but you know,
Thank you.
we still need to make sure that we're getting our voices out there, and you play a big
Thank
role
you.
in that.
Stephen Ryback, 23 Riviera. I just want to clarify something about the ad hoc committee. I voted no for the redistricting, and I voted no because myself and many other people on the ad hoc committee felt that our expertise was not used. I went to just a few meetings, but I heard at that meeting that through the other meetings, many people were not given a chance to look into information and express how they felt. And while, I want to be clear, while redistricting may have to happen, I just didn't want the plan that was offered because I knew the data had changed, the numbers had changed, so I voted no on the redistricting plan that was proposed by the demographer. And I just want to be clear on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Klein, you've already been here twice.
Right, but I just want to explain, somebody brought up the Solo Act. Most people here have no idea what the Solo Act is and how it approved.
I know, but it's
how
not
it
on
affected
the
us.
agenda, so,
It's all pertaining to the same thing that they've spoken about. I'll be done in 2 minutes.
no, we hold that for the next,
What's that?
we will hold it to the, Mr. Klein?
I should follow the rules?
Mr. Klein?
You don't like what I have to say?
Okay, Mr.
I'm not getting into an argument, because last
No,
time I got
no,
into
we
an
will
argument,
just-
it was on 101.5.
No, we will just
You
take it.
want me to hold this for later?
Yes,
I'll hold it for later.
that's-
No problem.
That's all I
No
was asking.
problem, but he's out of order, by the way.
I know, and I'm going to say, please don't do that again. We won't do that again.
Hi, Maureen Drabig, 19 Treetops Drive. I just want to make a comment about the redistricting. I feel that as parents, we really weren't that informed, and I don't think there was enough transparency. We don't even know what this plan is all about. Are you going to allow us to review it before a vote is taken?
There's not going to be a vote taken
Okay,
today. There is no plan.
There's no plan.
No, and in my board president's report, I will be
Okay.
talking about
I think
the
that's
ad
what
hoc committee.
the concern is. There's a lot of miscommunication.
Yes.
And I went on to Ross Haber's Associates, and a lot of the information they gave is that the district, along with administration, should really keep the public informed.
Absolutely.
There hasn't been anything on the website as far
Because
as
there's nothing to put on the
there's
website
nothing from the ad
this
hoc and
time.
all the planning, any updates or any information. There's no information to share with us.
No, in fact, the ad hoc committee just met on the 30th, and they will be bringing their recommendations to the board this evening. So we as an ad hoc committee, we know what they are, but the board does not know what the recommendations are.
When does the community get to be involved with that
They were
information?
involved in the ad hoc
I'm
committee.
talking, a few people were.
It
Parents,
was open
the
to
larger
anybody
community.
in the public who wished to be on that ad hoc committee.
Okay, but in viewing the website, your board website, there's very limited information unless it's hidden in the agenda or in documents, it's very difficult to find. And that's just what I want to say. There's very limited transparency.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Unless you have something different to say, we're going to,
I just want to clarify.
could you please give your name and address?
Chrissy Skirby, 8 Seminole Court. Under item H, number 4, it says receive, review, and act on the recommendations of the ad hoc committee. Is the board going to be acting on them? You
No.
just said no. Then why is that in the agenda? Receive, review, and act on the recommendations.
We can act on it by doing nothing. So we need to get, right?
I receive it.
Right. We will be getting a report today from the ad hoc committee. The board can accept that report or it cannot accept that report.
Right, and if it's accepted, it will be acted on, as the lady before me just had mentioned. That, yes, it will be acted on. And I would just like to say, as a member of the ad hoc committee, like Steve had said, I voted no for the proposal for the reasons why I brought up already. Other parents on that did as well, because we felt, again, that the numbers in that report did not reflect what's truly going on. So again, I just want to reiterate to the board, if you can please, when you get that recommendation, really look into those numbers, because the parents that were on that board, the majority of us voted no that evening for that reason. Yes, we do agree. It would be lovely to redistrict and have 20, 22 kids in classes. We don't see that with the numbers that were presented to us. And leaving out developments that are coming in out of that report is a grave mistake. So again, there were a lot of parents on that committee. There were other parent leaders from parent groups from the middle school. We voted no to this recommendation.
Mrs. Skirby, if I may, as the superintendent, I understand that obviously there's a lot of misinformation out there regarding the reporting as well as the ad hoc committee and the intent of the ad hoc committee. Being on the ad hoc committee for the past couple of years, I think what's happening right now is that it's premature and it's too emotional. So right now is that obviously a lot of the parents on either sides of the chairs, maybe the senior citizens on either side of the chairs, but you don't have the right information. At the very least, what we should do, out of respect to Mr. Homoki and obviously as the chairperson of the ad hoc committee and to the members of the ad hoc committee, is wait for Mr. Homoki's recommendation to the Board of Education. At that time, obviously, it's being received by the Board of Education. They'll receive it, not receive it, whatever it is, that's the board action. After that, that's when the process actually begins. If there's a question about, let's say, the demographer's report or the statistics or the data that's there, well, then that should come out, but that's the board's prerogative then. And if you want to make some suggestions, then help the board make the right decisions. But as of right now, I understand that obviously it's a concern, it's an emotional reaction. But don't let that cloud the issue. What has to happen tonight is that the ad hoc committee, the chairperson, Mr. Homoki, has to make the recommendation to the Board of Education. They receive it, the process begins. As we do this, I just want everybody in the community just to keep in mind, we have to make some serious decisions coming up. As a principal of Brookside School, that was redistricting. As a principal of Oak Tree School, that was redistricting. As the principal of Applegarth School, that was redistricting. What you should know that in a community sense is that a community that's thriving, redistricting will happen all the time. It does. A district that is downsizing, redistricting happens as well too. You can think about closing schools or you can think about building schools, but redistricting is happening all the time. With that said, you should also just keep in mind, and I understand that some parents may want this school or that school, et cetera. And the principals are all in the back right now, and all the other administrative teams are here as well too. But you should just know is that the quality of education in each of our schools is exceptional. Ask anybody. So if you have, let's say, one parent that goes to Barclay Brook School, if you have one parent that goes, let's say, to Barclay Brook School, and because of the fact that they're satisfied with the culture and the academics there, and their child is having a great time at that school, and it's a great learning environment, they're happy there. Of course they don't want their child to move. But I can attest to the fact that every school is an exceptional school institution. Don't not think about that. I think that's the most important thing. Redistricting will happen, but at least tonight, please, what you're doing right now is you're just wasting time. Let Mr. Homoki make his report then, obviously as an ad hoc chairperson, to the Board of Ed. That has to take place first. Thank you.
Jody Desai to Northwind Court. I just want to urge the board to make sound decisions on whatever it is. I think we're all just up here as concerned parents, whether it be redistricting or referendum. I was at the ad hoc committee meeting for a short while, and something really responsible that came up was Mr. Poi had said something about the possibility of an intermediate school, something that has the most impact on the community as a whole and that we can get the most behind. I think what's out right now, people are just questioning it so much, it's causing unease. We just want to be informed and educated, and again, we want the best chance, like that was mentioned at the referendum, about the referendum, that we need to take the steps towards what has the best chance to be successful. And I just want the board to come together and realize that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jody.
Anyone else wishing to speak? Seeing no one, we will close public forum, and we will go to the park presentation. Mr. Ventrello, who's doing the park? Okay. Would you please use the, yes.
Okay. Okay, good evening. My name is Dr. Kelly Roselle. I'm the supervisor of Language Arts, World Language, and Media Literacy. Bonnie Castelletto, who is the supervisor of Science and Social Studies, and Sue Gasco, who is the supervisor of Math and Educational Technology. We're going to review the park website. Some of you may be familiar with its contents, others this may be the first time you're seeing it, but this is one piece in our step towards park preparation that we want to introduce not only members of the Board of Education, but also members of the public too. So on the homepage, this is awkward, okay. On the homepage, we have a timeline of when park assessments began development, which was actually in 2010. We began having more serious conversations about the park assessments last year, and of course this year. This year will be the first time that students are assessed in the spring. They will take two types of assessments. Chris, you can go to the assessment tab. In March, students in grades 3 through 8 will take performance-based assessments. In language arts, that's a literary analysis task, a research simulation task, and a narrative task.
For the mathematics, one of the key components is the PBA, which is otherwise known as the performance-based assessment, is going to be an open-ended problem-solving application task that they're going to do. Pretty much the whole thing is going to be like that. It's going to have higher level critical thinking. They're very, very much reading comprehension is going to be involved, and they're going to be hand scored, which is why those are the earlier ones. The second assessment, which is called the EOY, it's known as the end of the year assessment. That will include 90% of the material, where the first one includes 70% of the material. The rationale for the 90% is that we obviously want to do 100% of the material, but it gives them leeway in case one type of concept is not on there from year to year, that's the general consensus that they're using. That one is going to be completely machine scored, and the idea is that there should be a quicker turnaround on that one, and that's why that's going to be the one that's going to be end of April, early May when they're doing that one. In those type of assessments, there's going to be 3 types. They call them task 1, 2, or 3 in the assessments, and that's going to have the level of complexity that goes along with them. Okay, technology. Okay, as far as the technology component, that's obviously one of the main concerns across the state. The what we're going to do in this district is grades 3 through 8, which is the elementary and the middle school, are going to be using personal computers. Every student is going to have headphones that go along with it for the accountability, for the different types of, I'm losing my words here, the different types of accessibility that they're going to have to use them. The high school will use iPads. It will not be the ones that the students have. There's going to be ones that they have that are set just for the park, so they cannot have extra apps on there that they could use, and they will use the earbuds that they've been given throughout the year. In terms of the mathematics, grades 3 through 5 will not have a calculator component, which originally they were going to have that. Grades 6 through 8 will have a calculator component that will be for function for grades 6 and 7 and scientific for grade 8. The high school, the Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2 will have graphing calculator components that will mimic the TI-84. And those are going to have drop-down menus with them.
For the language arts, one of the most significant differences between the assessments students previously took and the assessments they take now is the addition of multiple sources. So students may view video clips, they may see still images. That's part of the technology in the language arts, in the English language arts section. Students will take 2 types of multiple choice questions. One is a selected response, another is a technology enhanced response. So students might be asked to click and drag different statements to create a summary of a passage that they have read. When students create their prose constructed response in response to literature, they will have the features available to them similar to what is in any word processing, whether it's Microsoft Word or Max Pages. They have the ability to have bullets, numbers, to change whether it's bold or italics, and most importantly, a spell checker. And that is because students have those tools available to them every day, and their ability to use those tools is also part of the assessment process. Bonnie Castelletto is going to talk about the resources available to our educators, to parents, and to students as we continue our park preparation.
Good evening, everyone. The purpose of our sharing this with you tonight is to begin a process of educating you about how these tests will roll out and how it will engage our students. So one of the core components of the new website that we put up, and I hope that you'll begin to explore because there are some really great resources located here, is the resource tab. So Chris, if you'll click on that resource tab for us, please. Okay, great. So what we have here is a scaffolding of hyperlinks that you will be able to explore that will take you to some pages that will give you further information. And then I think it is the intention of Sue Kelly and I to come back and give you periodic updates and ask you to join us on this journey as we begin to prepare our students for the park assessment in the spring. Okay, thanks everyone.
Thank you. Mr. Kaufman?
Yeah, ladies, before you walk away, back in the August curriculum meeting, we had talked about the park assessments and getting the word out to the parents. Well, I know we have a lot of folks here tonight. Can you tell me what the date is when we're going to have the parent night out for the park assessment?
We're still working with the calendars for the parent nights. What we have organized is the professional development for teachers. So for example, in the past 2 weeks, I've been working with middle school teachers. In the upcoming weeks, I'll be working with grades 3 to 5 teachers so that they can also engage more thoroughly in those conversations with parents. But we are still in the planning stages of the parent meetings because we want to avoid as many conflicts as possible with conferences, games, extracurriculars, etc.
Okay, and I think we also spoke at the time about having some type of executive level type of material. While the content that's out there is very deep, I know a lot of our parents are going to really know what do I as a parent need to know without digging through all of this. So like an executive overview, quick type of stuff.
Like an FAQ or
anything
executive
that gets,
summary?
You know, 90% of the parents are here. What do they need to know that's going to affect them and all the other stuff for the 10%ers that will go out to every link that's out there and click on the links of the links that are links on links to get every possible known information to man. But, you know, provide a service to all the parents, because they're the ones that are going to be impacted a lot too.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the board have a question? Mr. Notstein?
Obviously, there's a lot of trepidation from the public. I get that, and I would be the same way if my children were impacted by this. I think it's imperative that we keep the parents on the right track so that they know exactly where we're going with this, and to alleviate any fears, any concerns that they have, and really be proactive with regard to that. You're doing a great job, and we appreciate it, but we really, really need to keep them, on board with this.
One of the reasons why we created the park website was because when we personally look at the material that's out there from the state and from park, it's very overwhelming and there's just a lot of it to look at. So what we did is, while it looks like there's a lot of links, we've taken the pieces that we think are the most important and the most helpful. We've tried to streamline the website, and our plan is to update slowly so that the rollout just keeps continuing and keeps happening, but we're not overwhelming anybody at any one shot. And we've learned, because with the park, there's Park Online, which is one of the links that we've sent the teachers to. Their first initial response is, where am I supposed to go? What am I supposed to look at? So we're trying to handpick the pages that we think that are most helpful. And when we're educating the teachers as time goes on, and we're educating the students, and that's why we're going to do the parents next. I can tell you, though, in terms of the parent night, we want to do it in the fall. So we're looking at probably November, hopefully not too into December, but we have to watch, like I said, all the different activities and the conferences and the games. We want to make it so the most amount of people can be there that want to be there.
And Tom, that was the original, for that exact reason you spoke of, that was the original reason we brought up the park night. Because you really need... Great idea. This is a great forum, and people maybe watch 28 on their way from 27 to 29, right? But really, the stakeholders here are the parents, and we need to set up a special night so that they know it's scheduled, plan for it, come out. If you want to know everything there is to know about park, that's the night.
And to assuage concerns as well, we field tested in the spring. We were one of the fortunate districts to have field tested in the spring. It was incredibly successful. Not only students' response to it, but also the teachers with whom I spoke. Students use words like liked and interesting, which you do not frequently hear with assessments, and a great deal of the trepidation that surrounds the technology, our students did not seem to have any issues with it. They were fluent in the technology that they needed, and we're filling in any gaps where there might be.
Mr. Minio?
Yes. I think it's great to get out in front of this in the fall, but right before the park, could there be another assessment or opening for the parents, right before, like maybe in February or something like that, or a hotline that the parents know for 2 hours or 3 hours, in the spring? So the parent, you can learn something, and then months later, when the time comes, I think you'd start to panic again. So if you can have another public forum or some ability for the parents to maybe ask some of the final questions, or just maybe a review of what's gone on in the fall. Maybe you can see some of the hot button issues or the main questions and just review in the spring right before. I think that would take a lot of anxiety off. And again, I don't know if it makes sense, but some type of hotline.
Definitely, and we also spoke about recording the sessions or having screencasts or being and having those accessible on the website, because obviously not everybody would be able to attend in person, and we always encourage parents to reach out to us when they need information.
Thank you.
They could email or call anytime they want.
Absolutely.
Okay, but to concentrate it on right before, so people won't have that anxiety.
I think our goal is to do this at multiple stages.
Okay,
before the
that's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, we will go to the approval of the minutes for the special Public Board of Education meeting of August 23rd, 2014. Is there a Mr. Braverman? Ms. Arminio?
No, actually,
any additions or corrections? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Abstain.
Mr. Kaufman abstains. And the approval of the minutes for the Public Board of Education meeting of September 10th, 2014.
So moved.
Mr. Notstein?
Second.
Ms. Arminio? Any additions or corrections? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Mr. Chiarella abstains. And committee reports. Are there any committees that need to report this evening? Mr. Kaufman, I know you do.
Sure. We had a curriculum meeting this evening. Dennis let us know that we're going to have to make a slight change to accommodate some park testing in the school calendar, and that's going to be coming down the pike later on. We also looked at curriculum documents for the following: French 1, Accelerated Math, Grade 5, Project-Based Learning, Math, Grade 6, Math Advantage Program, Grade 6, Math Advantage Program, Grade 7, Math Advantage Program, Grade 8, as well as Speech for K-12, ESL for K-12, Strength and Conditioning 2, thank you, Health and Fitness Education, Grade 6, and Falcon Powell's Adaptive Physical Education Program. For those of you who don't know, I don't think I would do it justice, and he's probably going to kill me for it, but Greg, if you're still here, could you talk about 2 minutes about what the PALS program is? Did he run? He's gone? Okay, he may have left. We'll come back to the public to present what that is. I don't want to, I would have no way of doing it justice, but it's an incredible program where we interact students with special needs and some of the other seniors to do physical, athletic programs together, small classes. It's really an unbelievable program that they have here, so kudos to the team for putting this forward. Additionally, we looked at a few clubs that are being asked to be put on the roster. Science National Honor Society, Zumba Club, Tech's Event, which is a technology-based type of event. It's a technology type of club. We got all the information that we have as far as the sign-up sheets. We are getting very strict with the clubs as far as increasing the requirements for not just folks that are wanting to start a club, but also to make sure that at the end of the initial year that the buyback or the benefit of the club is really assessed to make sure it's worthy of continuing on and ultimately getting funding. These are not going to cost anything. These are the first years. You know, first year is kind of the freebie. The other thing that Craig also mentioned about the Zumba Club, besides the fact that there's a huge number of folks that have signed up for it, we're also using that as a test bed to see if we're going to actually incorporate that into the intramural program when we go after this first year. It's sort of like a test to make sure, because it's definitely athletic based, and we're going to test the waters to see if the attendance stays up and it really takes water, so to speak, that we could try and consider putting that into our actual program and then not have it be a club. Of course, National Science Honor Society is a huge thing, so that's a really great program that we're going to be taking a look at. And we also have one club that we're going to get some information back regarding things like insurance coverage and that type of thing. So that's pretty much, I think, all the news that's fit to print from curriculum.
Thank you. Anyone else have a, Mr. Minio?
Could I ask Mr. Kaufman a question?
Sure.
That's good. So has the curriculum committee made a change in essentially you said they're going to be determining different criteria for clubs. Is that in writing? Is that something that the rest of the board can review? And will you be keeping actual track and will be able to, in a sense, audit it at the end of the year?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, if you remember last year, we did get a report back from Greg on the clubs and the ones that we kind of weeded out because they weren't kind of like successful anymore. One of the things that we suggested to the administration is that they own the process of developing the assessment program, then bring it to the board for us to review. Because one of the questions came up, well, can you tie it to number of attendees? No, you really can't, because if it's, I'm just making it up, it's a very high-level academic club, maybe, and if we set the bar where it's so high you have to have a certain academic GPA to even qualify, then we may not have 150 people. We may only have 5 that meet the criteria. But if it turns out that it's a competitive club and it's going to do great things, so we really basically said, look, we will support these types of things moving forward. You just have to justify it, right? Okay. So figure out how you're going to assess it, because I can't assess a club that may be athletically based with the same rigor that would be academically based. the criteria should be different, right? Let them figure out how to assess the value, and then after that first buy-in year, I also recommended that in addition to the stuff they do now, and it is pretty substantial what Greg puts them through when they want to create a club, you kind of have to submit a lot of documentation, go out, get a lot of names, and as he said in the meeting, a lot of times people have really great ideas about a club, and then when they find out they have to do all that work, they don't want to do it. So, and it is the students that are doing it, not, they also have to go out and find the academic advisor who's going to work gratis for the year. It's a lot involved. But the challenge is not just making it tougher for them to get on the plate to even for the freebie year, right? But once that year is over, then we have to decide if we're going to support it and approve it, right? So once you get to that point, demonstrate that it's going to add value, as Doug said, that we're going to have value back for not just the student, but is there community value? Is there value? Are you being self-improved in some way? Figure out what your criteria are so we can better move that stuff forward. And always on an annual basis, constantly review the clubs to make sure that we're getting everything that we would expect to get, that they're popular, because, after a few years, maybe a club just isn't cool anymore. I don't know, but.
Would the curriculum committee be open to perhaps either April or May audit or report of those clubs, so we can have some sense of that we're actually tracking it and we're reviewing it? And so, maybe we could have an actual schedule, so we have an idea of
I'll find out from Greg when he
assessment.
did it last year, and we'll just keep with the same. I don't remember when it was. Something makes me say it was in the. Do you remember, Mike, when we had that audit for the clubs?
I specifically remember it. I don't remember the actual date, though.
Yeah, we'll get back to you
Towards
on
the
the
end.
date.
And just one other thing, does the programming club, will that be involving coding as well, or is that the same?
Programming club? I don't have a program.
Or is that media programming?
We didn't have a media program.
We don't have that.
Not for this evening.
Programming club on
Maybe
here?
it was taken off. Here's what I had for tonight.
Oh,
Science, National Honor Society, Zumba, Special Strides, Student Transfer Acclimation Team, which we kind of decided probably not. That particular club activities could probably be done out of a pre-existing club that we already have a lot of that kind of do that type of stuff. And TEX event.
okay.
TEDx,
Yeah, that's
TEDx.
TEDx, I'm sorry. Right, it did say it was on
These are the one, okay.
Okay,
All right, I got it.
is there any other committees that need to report? Seeing none, we will go to Mr. Ventrello's superintendent's report.
Madam President, before we get into my report, I have a few updates and some comments for the Board of Education and the public. The board's Personnel Committee has been informed that postings have gone out for the Brookside Schools principal's position, the arts supervisor position, and we will be posting a position for the acting high school assistant principal position at the high school. That position came about when Mr. Higgins was appointed the acting principal at Applegard School, taking my place as I became the interim superintendent. So you can keep an eye out for two postings that have already gone out. That's the principal's position at Brookside School, the art supervisor position for the district, and also now you'll have an acting high school VP position at the high school. At our board meeting on September the 23rd, I had recommended Mr. Maralda for the position of arts supervisor. A board member raised the question in earnest as to whether my recommendation and interview process were legal, as Mr. Maralda did not have his supervisor's certificate at the time of the interview. We did get prompt legal advice that night via a phone call from the board's legal counsel. She cited administrative code that it was legal as long as the employee had the certificate prior to being employed. So for clarification purposes, since that was on video, for clarification purposes, it is not unlawful for a staff member to interview for a position which requires a certificate, and that person does not have it at the time of the interview. I do want to say just in summary that Mr. Maralda did have the certificate prior to my recommending him for the position. And so, ergo, therefore, both my recommendation and the process were legal, since that was on video. On another note, since we have so many parents here, and obviously we all can be concerned about the several incidents, I want to assure all of the parents here The locker rooms in the Monroe Township School District are supervised by appropriate personnel at all times that students are present. The locker rooms are treated as they should be, like a classroom, and when students are present in the locker room, they are supervised in every respect in the same manner as if it was a classroom. The safety of our students is of paramount importance to the Board of Education and to all of the staff members in our district. I know I speak for the entire community here in Monroe that obviously our sentiments really go out to obviously the victims of those incidents in Sayreville and to their families. At this time, Madam President, it is recommended that the members of the Monroe Township Board of Education approve the personnel items A through B by consent roll call.
Mr. Notstein? Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Poi? Is there any comments or questions for Mr. Ventrello? Ms. Arminio?
It's recommended that the board approve the following personnel pending enrollment. Could you just explain that a little bit?
That's a Title I grant that we have, so most of that is all funded by Title I funds.
And that's enrollment for a particular,
Yes, that's a Saturday Academy.
the Saturday Academy?
That's
Okay.
correct. Yep. Good question.
Anyone else? Then we will have Mr. Prezioso.
I'm an alternate for personnel, and twice I was not given an opportunity to make a meeting and be able to attend, so I'm going to abstain from the vote.
Okay. Mr. Gorski, roll call.
Mr. Poi?
Yes.
Mr. Notstein?
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman?
Yes.
Mr. Zarneski?
Yes.
Mr. Chiarella?
Yes.
Mr. Braverman?
No on S, yes on the rest.
No on
S.
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 Thank you.
Mr. Gorski, I'm going to recuse on S.
Mr. Kaufman recuses also on S. Ms. Arminio?
Yes.
Mrs. Koloponowicz?
Yes.
Madam Board President, personnel items A through B passes.
Thank you.
Madam President, it is recommended that the members of the Monroe Township Board of Education approve board action items A through K. And K is the, for board members, that's the single sheet that I just handed out.
Mr. Notstein?
Second.
Second by Ms. Arminio. Any comments or questions from
I have a question.
Mr. Chiarella?
If I'm not mistaken, this falls, the ad hoc committee recommendations falls under this?
No, it's the school goals that, when we met in August, it's one of the goals that we would act and review and receive the recommendations of the ad hoc committee.
Ken, just to clarify, so on that Saturday when we met, we developed as a team, we developed the board goals as well as district goals. And now you're just approving that, that's exactly what, we're approving, those particular goals that we developed as a team.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we're not approving the ad hoc committees
No.
because we haven't seen that.
No, you are not.
Recommendation, no.
I'm
Ms.
sorry.
Arminio?
I think I might have, did I just vote on H?
Not yet.
Not yet,
We haven't
okay.
had a roll call
When we're
yet.
ready, I need a question asked.
Well, we're asking
Ready?
questions
Okay.
now.
I know that it was something that is, and it's on the minutes that we just approved, that when we were at the board goals, that we said that we would receive and act on the recommendations. But on here, I'm wondering if we can change and just say receive and review on the recommendations on the growth and facilities for the ad hoc committee. If we could just remove and act at this point. So we could just have a review, I think, based on some of the public comments.
And Michelle, if I may, is the fact that, the receive, review, and act as a Board of Education is obviously you have to act on that recommendation. How the board would like to act on that recommendation is obviously up to the purview of the Board of Education.
I just want that to be clear, because I think there was a discussion about that at the ad hoc committee, that how strictly is that being interpreted?
I think as you receive Mr. Homoki's report as the chairperson of that committee, once you receive it, that's acting on it. You received it.
That is the act,
That
just
is correct.
receiving it, okay.
I think the confusion tonight, and I'll say it again, is that I think the confusion tonight is that people are, one is that obviously it's premature that they're not they don't even have Mr. Hamoki's report yet to you. Plus also is they think that all the data that was discussed during the ad hoc, that's not part of his presentation. I don't mean to speak for him. He's basically saying is that he's probably making his own suggestions, but they're probably more conceptual than they are data-driven.
May I just?
Mr. Chiarella?
Yeah, and I do agree with Ms. Arminio, because the way I read it is receive, review, and act. Now, if we receive and review, that is acting. So acting, though, to me, is following through on the ad hoc committee recommendations and implementing those.
Mr. Gorski?
Act in this instance is defined as engage at a future time.
Okay.
Okay, not take action upon at this meeting. That would require a resolution, a second, and a vote.
Okay.
And that's not going to happen tonight. It's not on the agenda. So this act means to address at a future time.
Okay. Oh, I'm satisfied with that. Thank you.
Any other questions? Then we will have a roll call.
Mr. Prezioso.
Yes.
Mr. Poi.
Yes.
Mr. Nostine.
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman.
Yes.
Mr. Zarneski.
Yes.
Mr. Chiarella.
Yes.
Mr. Braverman.
Yes.
Ms. Arminio.
Yes.
Mrs. Kolpanowicz.
Yes.
Madam Board President, Board action items A through K passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that concludes your report, and we will go to the Business Administrator's report.
Madam Board President and members of the Monroe Township Board of Education, it is recommended that board action items A through H be approved by consent roll call. I am recommending to pull item I, as there is some new information about that agenda item that requires it to be pulled at this time, so it's A through H.
Mr. Nostine, Ms. Arminio, is there any questions for Mr. Gorski?
I do.
Mr. Chiarella?
The letter F, it says that a Rite Aid pharmacy technician will be giving those flu shots, administering those flu shots. And I'm not saying this just because I work for CVS. This is a concern, I think. But I didn't know that pharmacy technicians, the way I understand pharmacy technicians from CVS, are able to give flu shots. So I just want to make sure that if that should be worded as a pharmacist, that we have that right. Because I don't want to be having our staff receiving flu shots from a pharmacy technician who isn't certified in giving flu shots.
You know, anytime a staff member is getting an injection, this certainly would go to legal, and it has. The council wrote the resolution for this, and based upon the contract, was comfortable that everything was okay. It also went to the insurance carrier, and they were comfortable with it.
Maybe CBS next year.
When I'm gone.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, Mr. Gorski, roll call?
Mr. Prezioso.
Yes.
Mr. Poi.
Yes.
Mr. Nostine.
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman.
Yes.
Mr. Zarneski.
Yes.
Mr. Chiarella.
Yes.
Mr. Braverman.
Yes.
Ms. Arminio.
Yes.
Mrs. Kolpanowicz.
Yes.
Madam Board President, Board action items A through H passes unanimously. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we will go to the Board President's report. And Mr. Masters, before, took away a little bit of my thunder. He must have read the report, my report, before he spoke. I don't know how he did that. But I'd like to talk a little bit about the ad hoc committee and its purpose. Mr. Hamoki, chair of the ad hoc committee, will be giving the board the committee's recommendation in a little while under the public forum portion, the second public forum portion of this evening's meeting. But I'd like to explain the committee's purpose. Per our policy, an ad hoc committee may be created and charged at any time by the President of the Board of Education. The President shall appoint members to any committee so created, and they shall serve until the committee is discharged, which will be this evening. The President will establish the scope and timeline, and the committee shall report to the Board of Education periodically, which it has. 2 years ago, I created this ad hoc committee for the purpose of having the community members give input to the board on how we should deal with our growing student population and our facility needs. I appointed Mr. Hamoki as chair of this committee for many reasons. He has been a board member and he's been board president. He is a senior member living in our community. He is very respected by everyone, and he's been involved in ad hoc committees in the past. I did not appoint specific people to this committee, as I felt that it would be more important to have anyone who wished to be a part of this committee join because I felt that as we could use as many voices as possible. For about a year, maybe a little bit longer, I asked at this meeting, at all of our board meetings, to request people to attend this meeting, but after a while, you have to close it up because if you don't start at the beginning, it's really difficult sometimes to come in during the middle. Lately, I've heard that this committee was a sham, that it was a waste of the members' time, and it didn't do what it was supposed to do. So I'd like to report on what the committee has asked for and received so far, and what they've done. The first couple of meetings were informational. Dr. Hamilton, who was here at the time, Mr. Gorski, and Mr. Tague, who is our Director of Facilities, they spoke about our growing student population, our facility needs, and the financial side to different options. I spoke about the reasons I created this committee and what we were looking for at the conclusion of the committee. The members then requested and received information regarding all of our schools and classroom sizes, a referendum calendar of events that would show them exactly how long it would take if a referendum was recommended, how long it would take to get from A to B, and the rest of it. A tour of all the schools in the district. They asked for updated enrollment reports prepared by our professionals, and the committee made a recommendation to the board to renovate Monroe Township Middle School to add much-needed classroom space. The board approved that recommendation, and it is now our stopgap measure project in the middle school to add 9 new classrooms. Phase 1 of the stopgap project, which was the asbestos removal, was completed this summer. Phase 2, which is the interior renovation of the boys' team room into 2 health classes, is currently being done with the district maintenance staff. Phase 3, which is adding the additional classrooms, will be undertaken next summer and is currently planned for in the 2015-2016 budget. And it will definitely help with the overcrowding at the middle school. Last spring, the committee asked to have a redistricting survey done. It was completed before the end of the school year, but Dr. Hamilton had requested further information on the study and sent it back to the demographer with additional questions. Therefore, it was not available until sometime during the summer. A copy of the demographic, facility, and redistricting study was sent to each of the committee members in August for review and consideration at the next scheduled meeting. It is important to note that the numbers in the report change almost daily with the addition of new students registering in our district. For instance, just in the month of August, we added, I think it was 150 new students, and that could change the demographer's report drastically. The final enrollment numbers, as Mr. Gorski said, won't be available until October 15th, which is today. The committee did not meet over the summer for 2 reasons: the changes to the administrative team over the summer, and the fact that any recommendation that would have been made and recommended to the board would not go in effect until the next school year anyway. The last meeting of the ad hoc committee was held on September 30th. The topics that were discussed were redistricting and the need for a referendum. It is and always was the purpose of this committee to recommend options for the board to consider. It is not the committee's role to recommend a specific plan. As New Jersey school boards will tell you, if it's the responsibility of the superintendent, then it is not the responsibility of the Board of Education or any other committee. When the recommendation comes to the board this evening from Mr. Hamuki, that recommendation will be sent to the Buildings, Grounds, and Transportation Committee for research and discussion, as it should be, because we are we work as a committee level. If the BG&T committee agrees with the ad hoc recommendations, it will then be the task of the administration to come up with a plan using the demographic and redistricting study as a tool in their planning. When that happens and a plan comes before the board, then it would be open for discussion and approval. There is no plan at this time. There's been rumors going around that we will be voting on a redistricting plan this evening. We will not be voting on any plan. There is no plan. There is no plan until the administration comes up with a plan. Lastly, if you as an ad hoc committee member did not get a tour of the schools or all the information that you needed to vote on this recommendation, it means that you were not part of the committee at the beginning, but came in sometime during the process, after all this, we had the tour of the schools and the information that we needed at the beginning. So after Mr. Homoki makes the recommendation this evening, the role of the ad hoc committee will be completed. And then I hope that this helps to clarify some of the misinformation that's been going around the community. And the other thing that I need to tell you as the board president's report is that the Monroe Township School District Superintendent Search Community Input Session will be held on Monday, November 3rd, 2014 at 7:00 p.m. at the High School Media Center. It is the opportunity for the community, the parents, any community members to come to the high school, talk to our representative from New Jersey School Boards, Ms. Gwen Thornton, and give your input as to what you would like to see in the next superintendent. That input will be compiled and given to the Board of Education. If you cannot attend this meeting, there will be a survey on the website that you can fill out. So you have the two opportunities, either the website or at that meeting on, again, Monday, November 3rd at 7:00 p.m. And that concludes my report. And we will go to other Board of Education business. Ms. Arminio?
Yes. Is that date and invitation to the community going to be on the website?
It should be on the website.
Okay.
If it
Under
hasn't
what
been-
category, do we know?
Do we know?
We could put it at the top, Michelle.
Superintendent search.
We'll put it at the top.
Yeah, put it on the calendar.
Large letters.
Yeah, I bet you'd want that on top. The other thing is, some community members have notified me, this is on the website, is that correct? I'm sorry, the demographers. Is there the map that the demographer used when he suggested
website?
redistricting? Yes. I don't
Don't know, but
believe,
we can look into that. We can make
if
sure.
you can put that on the website, and this is not in color that we received, if we can get, I don't know, is it possible to we could put a color map on showing the recommended redistricting? I think people should have all the information.
Sure.
And my only other comment would be, if there is some, using the study as a tool, as you mentioned, if there is some discrepancy between the data, maybe we can just mention that or
Well, by the time that we get the recommendation and then it goes
Buildings
to
and
the
Grounds.
Buildings and Grounds Committee, if they recommend that we need to do that, it won't be done, it won't even be started until November. We would have to look at the new data.
So
and
the
take
Building
in-
and Grounds community can ask to consider some of the new developments?
Yes, absolutely.
In addition to the study?
And I think it
Okay.
would be very important to do that.
Thank you.
And I just want to mention to the public, too, that committee is open to the public, so they can come in and view the committee's deliberation and discussion.
Thank you.
If we
Mr.
can,
Girard?
I think we should have the Buildings and Grounds Committee meeting maybe here, because I think it's going to be well attended, and I don't think everybody's going to fit, and that's going to, alienate some people who won't be able to attend. I mean, that's a very small confined space, so I think if we could have that here or in another venue, that would, enable us to accommodate more people. That would be great.
Good idea.
We're still on other board business, right?
Yes.
Okay. I just have a couple other things, if I may. One is, I asked, and I don't know if policy took it up or if they're going to take it up, but the one thing that I asked the policy committee to take up is just to look at gym class deferment or opt-out for kids who are enrolled in sports who might want to opt out of gym in order to take that as a study period. From what I looked at and some of the documents that I provided, it looked like it was legally viable for kids to do that. Some of the things that I'm hearing about from families that have kids enrolled in sports is that they're out late at practices and at games. They're trying to do, they come home and now they're doing their homework late, and then the next day they're going to school, and then they have gym class, and they could probably study during that period if they were allowed to opt out of that, since they're already getting that physical activity as enrolled in one of our sports. So it's just something that I'm asking the policy committee and then the board to take up and look at. And then the other thing I just want to address, Mr. Klein, quickly, just that I missed the last the last meeting of Planning Board, I'm sorry, getting old. And because we had a special meeting here, so I didn't answer you, when you asked those questions, because I'm just not up on exactly what's going on there because I was here. I think that's it.
Mr. Chiarella, we're going to take your request to our legal advice to see if we can legally do that before we take it to the policy.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Other board business? Okay, then we are going to the closed session resolution. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Township of Monroe hereby moves to go into closed session in accordance with the Sunshine Law, Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of 1975, NJSA 10:4-6 through 10:4-21, to discuss the following subjects: 1, MTEA negotiations; 2, Jamesburg settlement agreement negotiations; 3, harassment, intimidation, and bullying incidents 1 through 4. The discussion conducted in closed session can be discussed disclosed to the public at such time as the need for confidentiality no longer exists.
So moved.
Mr. Nostine?
Second.
Second by Ms. Arminio. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? The board will now go into closed session. It will
5 minutes to an hour.
will take about 45 minutes, hopefully, no more than that.
Rob told me to do it. Where'd he go? Oh, sorry.
We're just waiting for a couple more board members.
You ready to go? Look at you. You ready to go?
I wasn't coming tonight at all.
It's cold.
Did you knock on the door for Michelle? Okay.
When you get old, you gotta help each other.
Very close board.
Yeah, and Michael Klein.
What did I do with my water?
Rob, I did it. I called him Michael.
Ooh, that's good. Water.
You in there 2 hours?
All that commotion. Did he forget to drive?
Coming. Right now, it's coming. It's coming.
He said it's coming out.
Okay. Okay, at this time, the board will go back into public session, and I will turn over the meeting to Mr. Gorski for a resolution.
Thank you, Madam Board President. Madam Board President, members of the Monroe Township Board of Education, members of the public, it is with great pride and sense of collaborative achievement between the Jamesburg and Monroe Township Board of Educations that I recommend to the Monroe Township Board of Education to approve the previously submitted settlement agreement in the matter entitled Monroe Township Board of Education versus Jamesburg Board of Education, agency reference number 9-1/13, OAL docket number EDU 02793-2013, N as in Nancy. The Board President and the Business Administrator Board Secretary as attesting witnesses are authorized to execute the aforementioned settlement agreement on behalf of the Board.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Chiarillo, Mr. Kaufman, is there any comments or questions? Mr. Notstein?
Yes, I just would like to, first of all, thank especially Mr. Gorski and all the people that had input in this. This is a historic agreement, and I really feel that a lot of work went into this, a lot of effort from the Jamesburg Board of Ed members and also our board, that to come up with this agreement it's definitely a win-win, and I will be definitely fully supporting this tonight, and I just want to thank you, Michael, for all your hard work.
Thank you, Mr. Notstein.
Same thing. This has been a long, protracted issue. I thank our neighbors in Jamesburg and welcome, as always, the students, and I'm glad that maybe we can put this to rest and move on. And Mr. Gorski, I know you always do a great job working things out for us, and thank you, Mr. Charneski, and your board in Jamesburg for your collaboration. Thank you.
Anyone else? Oh, Mr. Kaufman?
Yes, I would also like to thank Kathy for her leadership. I mean, some folks in the town may not realize how long this process has been going on. When I was board president back in 2010, Lou Masters and I actually attended some Jamesburg board meetings, and some board members at that time also came back here to attend our board meetings. So back in that time, things between the two districts were very heated. And to come up with this unilateral agreement where we can all walk away whole, where Monroe is not absorbing any of the expenses in this manner, is a huge testament to just doing the right thing for both towns. And Kathy has spent an inordinate amount of time both with our leadership here and down in the State House. So, as board president, she needs to, take a lot of the credit for leading this effort and resolving this issue. It's been a long time coming.
Thank you, Mr. Kaufman. Anyone else? Then I would like to just say a couple of things. This agreement started in many years ago, but since 2010, it's been a big issue. We go to the county for help. They send us to the state. We go to the state. They send us back to the county. We go to the Department of Education, and they can't help us. We go back to the state. The state says take us to court. And the only people that are getting rich from this was our attorneys. So in working with Rob and I sat down and said, we got to do something because we can't let this go on. It's causing a lot of issues and hardship, and we were able to work with the county. It was the board presidents, the BAs from both towns, and the superintendents from both towns. And we sat at the county office for quite a while. We reached an agreement in conception, and it's been going back and forth for the last few months to dot the I's, cross the T's. And I just want to thank Rob for his input and his help, and the Jamesburg Board of Education and the administration for supporting this. It is a huge agreement for Monroe and Jamesburg, and I think the collaboration between us is going to continue for many, many years to come. So thank you, Rob.
I'd also like to take this time to thank Kathy and Mike for all their hard work and getting the support of this board also for this agreement. Also, I'd like to thank in person who is here is Beth Brooks, our board secretary and business administrator. I'd also like to get the support that I believe in the back is also my wife, who's another Jamesburg board member, along with our mayor, Marlene Lawande, who's here. Without their support in all this, and especially with Beth and Mike, this wouldn't have done. A lot of this, as most of you know, when it comes to a contract negotiation or any kind of agreement, there are numbers going back and forth. And without the two of them working together and the hard work there, and also our attorneys to try to end this, even though their wallets were getting fat, they wanted to see an end to this too, because they know how difficult it is to sit here and manage a school and get through with everything we have to do, which is best for the children. And this is an agreement that I'm very proud of, that we should all be proud of in what we did and what we're accomplishing tonight. So thank you all.
Good job.
Anyone else? Okay, seeing no one, we'll have a roll call.
Ms. Arminio,
Yes.
Mr. Prezioso,
Yes.
Mr. Poi,
Yes.
Mr. Nostine,
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman.
Yes.
Mr. Zarneski is going to recuse. Mr. Chiarella.
Yes.
Mr. Braverman. Mrs. Koloponowicz.
Yes.
Madam Board President, I'm pleased to announce that motion unanimously passes.
Thank you very much. Do you want to read another one?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Madam Board President and members of the Monroe Township Board of Education, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve, number one, memorandum of agreement between the Board of Education and the Monroe Township Education Association, MTEA, for the period July 1st, 2014 through June 30, 2017, MOA, and the previously submitted addendum to the MOA between the Board and the MTEA dated September 8th, 2014. The Board President and Business Administrative Board Secretary, as attesting witnesses, are hereby authorized and directed to sign a collective negotiations agreement which incorporates the terms of the MOA and the addendum. The Business Administrative Board Secretary is hereby further authorized and directed to take all necessary steps to implement this action by the Board of Education.
So moved.
Mr. Chiarella, Mr. Braverman, any comments or questions?
I do.
Mr. Chiarella?
I just want to thank the negotiations committee, Mike, the administration, the MTEA. This was a long road. This was, the negotiations were tough. We even all got food poisoning together, which was not fun. And some members were hospitalized, but we got through it. And so we're here tonight with a finished product, but I just want to thank everyone for their collaboration and moving forward and creating this great district that we have today. That's it.
Yes, and some members had to go overseas and get food poisoning too. That was a good vacation. Anyone else? Mr. Notstein?
I too would like to thank the negotiating committee on both sides. I know it can never be an easy deal. I've done enough of these in the private sector to know that it's very time consuming, and it only gets done with the mutual respect on both sides. So obviously that's present. I do have a concern tonight, though. Basically, we were informed as a board that we would not be ratifying this or voting on this until possibly next month. When I saw the closed session agenda item this evening, I assumed that we were going to be discussing the terms in closed session and then ratifying it next month. Based on that, I would like to make a motion to postpone this until the next scheduled Board of Ed meeting.
I second.
Second by Mr. Minio. Any comments, questions? I think we just have to go right to with a tabling for roll call on.
No debate, it just goes right to a roll
Right,
call.
on tabling.
Motion to table.
Motion to postpone is different than, not to table. I want to postpone it till the next meeting. That's different.
Motion to postpone until the next scheduled meeting.
Correct.
Beg your pardon. Mr. Prezioso.
Yes.
Mr. Poi.
No.
Mr. Nostine.
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman. Recuse. Mr. Zarneski.
No.
Mr. Chiarella?
No.
Mr. Braverman?
No.
Ms. Arminio?
Yes.
Mrs. Koloponowicz?
No.
Madam Board President, motion to postpone until the next meeting does not pass.
So then we go back to the original motion of,
Please ask them to hold it.
we haven't done anything yet, so we're back to the original motion of approving the MTEA agreement with us. Okay. So, any comments or questions? Then we will go to the roll call on the agreement. Mr. Prezioso?
That was a perfect example what Tom brought up. We were told that we were going to vote on this next month. It has nothing to do with the contract. It's just the way we were told, that we were going to go in there and discuss it, and we were going to vote in November.
Anyone else? Roll call?
Ms. Arminio?
Abstain.
Mr. Prezioso?
Abstain.
Mr. Poi?
Yes.
Mr. Nostine?
Abstain.
Mr. Kaufman? Mr. Zarneski?
Yes.
Mr. Chiarella?
Yes.
Mr. Braverman?
Yes.
Mrs. Koloponowicz?
Yes.
Madam Board President, this motion requires the majority of the board's consensus. The consensus is 6, the majority is 4. We have 4 Monroe Board votes yes and 1 receiving member yes. That's sufficient to pass. Just with the Monroe votes alone, motion passes.
And before we go on to the public forum, I just want to thank our board negotiating team, Mr. Chiarella, Mr. Poi, Mr. Gorski, and Dr. Hamilton at the time, and Mr. Ventrilo very late, and the MTEA and your negotiating team and your negotiator. It's always been a lot of fun. But it was really done with good faith and with the children in mind. And I think the bottom line should always be what is best for kids. And working together, we will always be able to accomplish that. So thank you for working with us. So now we will go to the public forum. Anyone from the public wishing to speak, please come to the microphone, give your name and address for the record, and we will adhere to our 3-minute time limit.
Hi, Karen Castaldo, President of the Monroe Township Education Association. 4 Cypress Point Lane, Jackson, New Jersey, and I'm here to thank those board members who voted yes and did not abstain. I truly appreciate your yes vote, as do all of our members. We have our team sitting right behind me. We represent not only teachers, paraprofessionals, bus drivers, secretaries, media coordinators, child study team members, related services, and security. We are the heart and pulse of this district. We work with children day in and day out, and we've received many numerous awards, not because our people are not great professionals and respectful, but because we earned that verklempt, I guess I should say. But we work so hard to get a fair and equitable settlement, and I thank you again. Those who abstain, I certainly would like to know why, other than the fact that you were told that this was going to be voted on next month. That confuses many of our members here, and it certainly concerns us. So again, we thank you for passing the contract, and we look forward to more collaborative meetings together to resolve any issue that we can't resolve, and it was worth the food poisoning, every bit of it.
I don't know.
I don't know about that.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public?
Mark Klein, 7 Crenshaw. What I wanted to say before is, while you had your break, many of the residents and parents here asked me about the Sarlo Act. When Mr. Masters brought it up about possibly getting more money, what the Sarlo Act was this was sponsored by Senator Sarlo. It allowed developers who were previously approved to build PRCs, which is age-restricted housing, which has no effect on your schools. It allowed them, if they did not take a deposit, to apply to have it turned over to a family community. This was done only for the developers, as was the state Supreme Court with the Mount Laurel decision. What happened was we had 2 developers here. One I testified as a resident against, and it was supposed to be 300 and some odd PRCs, age-restricted homes. They wanted to convert it over to 300 and some odd families. You were not allowed to use the impact on the school system to turn it down. And I questioned them and I asked, how long do you own the property? 5 years. When did you get your approval? 3 years. What did you do in 3 years to promote selling it? Nothing. They wound up voting it down. They came back and they split it half and half. And this is Hovnanian. So you have half as families, which is all sold out already. The other half is PRCs they haven't built. The second one, which is the one that was by McDade, which is Renaissance Properties, that was 135 units. The zoning board, which I had to recuse myself from, I am on the zoning board for 9 years, they approved it. And what Renaissance Properties did, once it was approved, is they sold it over to Toll Brothers. What's happening is between Mount Laurel and Affordable Housing, which is now COA, and the Sarlo Act, they are forcing townships to overdevelop family communities without controlling what's going to go on in the schools. So a lot of people asked me about it. That's what I wanted to say before I was rudely interrupted. And that's all I had to say, is let the people have a better understanding of what the state is doing to us and not giving us money when they force all this on us. Thank you for a job that you all did very, very well. Thank God the bit with Jamesburg is over. I can talk to Rob now. And just congratulations, everybody.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? What happened to you while we were we were in that room for a little while?
Ira Tesler, 11 Aaliyah Drive. As everyone probably knows, I'm very passionate about education. I'd like to thank the board for all their hard work on the agreement tonight with the teachers union. I'd like to thank all the teachers and administrators for teaching my kids over the years. And my older daughter, Rebecca, just got into Johnson & Wales University in the culinary program. So I'm proud of what our schools have to offer, especially our culinary labs. I'm very passionate because I'm very concerned this year. I know we have an election coming up. And last year when I ran, there's a group in town called the Monroe Citizens for Responsible Government, which sounds pretty good. They supported Tom and Michelle and Mr. Rybeck last year. And they called Mr. Kaufman a part-time board member because he has a relative in the district, which is true. This year they're supporting Mr. Rybeck, Mr. Tutorius, and Frank Russo, who has a wife who's been working in the district since 1999. So I don't know how an organization can flip-flop more than John Kerry on its issue and support candidates like that. So I would encourage everybody when they go to the polls to pick candidates supported by an organization, or not supported by this organization, supporting candidates that are going to be for the children and for education. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public? Mr. Homoki? I know he's someone else. Oh. Hi.
Hi, Deborah Palella, Louise Lane. I actually thought someone else would come up here and it wouldn't be me, so I just have a question. Earlier, I walked in a little late, I apologize. Something came up about redistricting, and I heard that there's been some rumors about the redistricting and it wasn't going to be addressed tonight. So I'm not sure what are rumors and what are facts, because it has not been detailed anywhere that I can find out about it. Is there any detailed information that we can find, a report, or what the committee has done, or what the maps are of the redistricting, et cetera, to
You might want to wait until Mr. Hamoki makes his presentation.
Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I
Help
know,
us,
Joe,
Joe,
I
help
was just
us.
going to say, we made you wait a long time. I'm sorry.
Joe Hamoki, 61 Hoffman Road. I heard my name at least a dozen times. And what I would like to do is, I'd like to just turn around and face the audience so they know who Joe Hamoki is. All right. Kathy, you mentioned many of the same things that I will mention, but I think it's worth repeating some of these things. The committee was formed by the president of the Board of Education, Kathy Kolopanovich, and its purpose, and I think it's very important, was to review and study the proposed growth in Monroe Township and its impact on student population and facilities. That is the purpose of the committee. She asked me if I would be chair of the committee, and she caught me at a weaker moment, and I just said yes. I don't know why, but I said yes. I just want to tell you that we had a total of 35 members on the committee, but we never had 35 members present at any one of our meetings. Just very briefly, we had presentation by ex-Superintendent Hamilton, by Kathy Kolopanovich, and by Jerry Tague. And Jerry Tague's presentation was very powerful. He spoke about the long-range facilities plan, and all the members of the committee heard this. He talked about the functional capacity of each school and then the number of students in each school. He also said that there's an unequal distribution of students on the elementary level. And he also said that it's possible to create additional classrooms in the middle school, provided there is money, and a recommendation from the committee to the board. And I'll get back to that in a second. Mr. Gorski also made a presentation, and I think it's very significant because to build a school, if that's the direction the board takes, it doesn't happen overnight. You first of all have to have community involvement. You need support from the community. If you don't have that, you know it's not going to happen. There has to be a site selection. There has to be a decision knowing what the impact will be on the programs that we have, bonding procedures, state approvals, referendum, construction, and so on. And between all these things that I just mentioned to you, things always go wrong, and there are always delays. So what I'm going to say at the end is to start as soon as possible. We, as a committee, looked at the Whitehall Associate Demographic Study, and the committee unanimously agreed that the data that that study had was not adequate to make any kind of a decision. So the committee decided that we need a new study. And we made two recommendations to the Board of Education. And I'll just read this because I think people who don't know that much about this will understand this. This is the unanimous recommendation of the ad hoc committee approximately halfway through our deliberations. Authorize a new demographic study to be performed by an alternate demographer. The new study shall provide growth projections and include separate report detailing options for redistricting. Number two, this goes back to Jerry Tague when he said that he can create some classrooms in the middle school. Authorize the architect of record to proceed with a limited design study and educational specifications for reservation and reconfiguration of existing interior spaces of Monroe Township Middle School that could potentially create 7 additional classrooms. And my understanding is that not only do we have 7, but we're in the works to get a total of 9. Is that correct, Mike? That it will be?
Correct.
We'll be talking about 9, which was a great decision. And the board unanimously accepted this, and this was unanimously passed by every member of the board who was present. We also provided for the committee opportunities to go to our different schools. We planned a date, we had a date, and any board member, I'm talking about ad hoc committee member, who wanted to go to an elementary school that they never saw before, we made arrangements that they would do so. And we did the same thing for the middle school and for the high school. I'm not too sure how many people took this up because many of the members of the committee have been to quite a few of the schools. Now, as of the recommendations that we had that I just read to you, two of them, we had another report, which was the Russ Haber report, which was presented to the full committee at our last meeting. This was in great detail, and it outlined basically a building plan with dates as to when we should have a school in place, and also had a redistricting plan. And it was a little bit difficult to convey to the committee members that this report is not etched in stone. It's only a recommendation, and it will be up to the board to make a decision whether you redistrict or not. So I want to emphasize that because I don't want people to think that this report, whatever is said, is the end line. There were lots of questions and a lot of recommendations. Now, none of the recommendations that I will read to you now were really adopted by the committee as a whole, but I just want to mention a couple of them. For example, somebody suggested that we reconfigure the district for a K-5 setup. Another one suggested that build a central 5 and 6 school to potentially eliminate the need to expand Monroe Township Middle School and provide relief for the elementary schools. Another suggestion was to build a K-6 school for the Oak Tree area in lieu of lower elementary schools. Let me just flip over. Again, I was trying to emphasize to the committee members that our recommendation is simply a recommendation to the board and nothing else. The real work that will begin will be after I'm done over here and it's in your court. Now, one of the things that I heard very clearly from the members is that they want to be more involved. They want to know more, they want to be more involved. And I believe, Kathy, you may have agreed to this, but if you have any kind of committees that deal with redistricting or with building, the committee members that were on my committee should have first priority to be on the committee. And the other thing is there are a number of people in the audience who would like to be on some of these committees, but don't know where to go, don't know who to go to. So maybe you can do something with that, or maybe put it on, I don't know in what, but let them know where they have to, what they have to do in order to get on a committee. But again, I would like to thank very much all the members of the committee, and my goal was that everybody would have a chance to say whatever they wanted to say, and obviously everybody did not agree on everything. And these are the recommendations that we have, and I want to read exactly what it says. The first recommendation to the board is, it is recommended that the administration redistrict attendance zones maintaining the sister school concept, okay? I mentioned before that Jerry Tate talked about the unequal distribution of students in the elementary school. So if the board decides to go in the direction of redistricting, it's very strongly recommended by this committee that we keep the concept of sister schools alive, not to deviate from that. And the second recommendation it is recommended to the Board of Education to begin planning for a bond referendum. I outlined before very briefly all the steps that need to be taken in order to have a school in place. So with that, I'd like to just say that, again, I want to thank the committee members. I hope everybody had a chance to say what they wanted to say. Everybody didn't get exactly what they wanted, but that's the way a committee works. But again, these recommendations going to the board, You don't have to approve them. You accept them, you review them, and you, from that point on, you make decisions. And I think the real work that will begin will be now. And obviously, there's a sense of urgency, and you will have to start forming a committee or whatever you want to do, but it has to be done starting almost immediately. And that's the end of my report. Do you have any questions, board members? Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you so much, Joe, for agreeing to chair this committee and for keeping everybody in line, because it did get to be a little crazy, the last one. What we will do now is take your recommendations from the ad hoc committee, and we will send it to the Buildings and Grounds Committee for their review and their discussion, and see where it goes from there. As I said before, that committee is open to the public, so anybody who wishes to attend can attend.
I'd like to just say one more thing, and I sort of skipped that, but in fairness to those people who didn't support this, it was a majority on both instances, on 1 and 2, that approved the thing. It was not unanimous.
Right.
Okay?
Right. Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you again.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah. Anyone else from the public wishing to speak?
Night is young.
Yeah. Who's night?
Lou Masters, 9 Michaela Court. I also want to thank Joe for that. We always didn't see eye to eye, but we both really wanted what was best. And it was a lot of hard work, especially the last meeting. Can you disclose the details of the Jamesburg agreement? Or will it be disclosed? You don't have to do it right now.
No.
If we could do that after your 3 minutes, if you'd like.
Okay, that's a good, Mark? You're right. Okay, good, thank you. And again, that threw me off, right? Thank you to Kathy and Rob. To be honest with you, I thought this would never happen. I can say that now because I'm not on the board anymore. There was a lot of intricacies to that, and it was a big mess, and everybody else had a hand in it, and I'm actually pretty impressed with that. I can't wait to hear the details. And the negotiation committee, I want to thank the negotiation committee. That's a really nasty job. I'll say it. Again, I could say lots of things now. And the MTEA. The only other thing is this miscommunication. I'm just curious, was the agenda changed? I'm just curious about it. I mean, it sounds pretty bad. Was it only certain board members thought it was, or got the notice it was next month, and certain board members this month? I'm just curious, because that's a massive ethics violation if that's true, right? So, okay, that's it. Just curious about the details.
Mr. Gorski will handle both questions.
You want me to go back there, or you want me to stand here?
You can stand.
Are we going to fight?
No fighting. Remember the accolades that preceded. My contribution to the superintendent's weekly confidential that goes to the board had an error in the date where the agreement was going to be discussed. It was referencing the November board meeting, where I have in my mind the audit probably that's going to happen at that meeting, and not the October 15th date. So it was my error in the reporting in the confidential.
When did the agenda go out?
The agenda for today's meeting went out Monday, and it did not change with regard to the closed session agenda items.
So it had the error on it?
No, it wasn't the agenda, it was the Friday confidential.
Okay, so it wasn't the agenda. The agenda was correct.
You remember the Friday confidential?
Oh, yes, I do. Especially when they were hand-delivered, because it was going to be too big to email. Remember those, Mark? Okay, and then just about the Jamesburg, but
Sure.
I'm done.
I'll be brief because it's late in the hour. Since 1979, Jamesburg students have been coming to Monroe on a tuition basis. The way it works is that the budget software every year calculates a tuition rate for high school students. And you multiply that rate by the number of anticipated students that Jamesburg provides. That's the tuition that they pay through the budget. Then at the end of the year, you calculate the actual rate from the actual expenditures and the actual ADE, average daily enrollment, and you settle that between the budgeted and paid amount. This has been done throughout since 1979 with ebbs and flows in the amount back and forth to the districts without a problem. And in fact, when Monroe was planning this high school and we had worked with the financial advisors, we met with representatives from Jamesburg. This is 10 years before the opening of school. And we proposed the amount of debt service, and particularly interest, that would be forthcoming, that would be shared between the two districts based upon their percentage of enrollment. We had an agreement with Jamesburg to pay said interest as part of the tuition cost, but a problem occurred in 2010 when Governor Christie signed the budget law of 2010. It eliminated a tuition cap waiver, which had always been in existence before. It also eliminated a building a new school waiver for all the costs associated with getting a new school open. We had to fit this in the budget that year, and we were quite shocked because of that law. It also imposed a 2% tax levy cap, which prohibited Jamesburg from budgeting the amount of interest necessary to satisfy the tuition obligation. The cap would have required hundreds of thousands of dollars of cuts into already decimated programs due to Jamesburg's loss of state aid in order to do that. So we appealed to the county office. The county understood the problem. We went to the Department of Education Finance Department. We were unsuccessful there. We appealed to Governor Christie, and we met with Governor Christie's chief of staff, who did not have a solution for us and instead said, why don't you litigate the matter? We had no other alternatives, and our council recommended litigation, so we appealed to the Commissioner of Education through litigation, where Monroe spent approximately $119,000 to date on legal fees, and Jamesburg, I don't mean to speak for the district, but I think it's about 45. Both very consequential uses of resources that are desperately needed. Even if Monroe was successful through the court process of determining that this debt was owed to Monroe, the second leg of this would have been the requirement to pay. And with the cap law still in place, and with the state unwilling to contribute any more state aid, and with the state unwilling to offer a tax cap waiver, there would be no ability to pay, and we would be back where we started. That it was this lack of clarity and frustration that prompted the board president to call a meeting at the county office to see if we could negotiate agreement amongst ourselves. Very willing, we agreed and with Jamesburg, and we met with Jamesburg's board president, Jamesburg board president, BA, and superintendent, and the same counterparts for Monroe. It was a very difficult meeting, a very emotional and raw meeting. This followed our attorney's advice to demand a school warrant from Jamesburg, which is basically a note, a promissory note, or to lock out the Jamesburg students. This is where this was heading and how bad this was becoming. This agreement at the county office was almost discontinued if it wasn't for some promising contributions from both sides, and the back and forths between the district has created an agreement as follows. Monroe's high school tuition rate has been steadily decreasing since we opened this school because of the cap, because of the fact that we fortified a lot of the supply expenses when we built this school and don't have a need for additional teaching staff and supplies, and mostly because our enrollment in the school is steadily increasing. When you divide the costs by the number of increasing students, the rate goes down. That decrease in Monroe's tuition rate is freeing up room in Jamesburg's cap, which they volunteered to commit toward the arrearage of about $950,000 of previous tuition and interest owed. And that is the agreement. Monroe also will not pass through any costs associated with new bonds for the construction of a new high school or in addition to this high school to Jamesburg, because Jamesburg's enrollment of about 267 students is stagnant, meaning plus or minus 5 kids a year, and is not driving the need for neither an expansion of the school or a new school. It is Monroe's enrollment, and thus it was decided that it was fair and equitable to alleviate Jamesburg from that future burden because it's Monroe's need that's driving it. If the agreement doesn't materialize, the district has a right to return back to litigation. However, all trend line analysis and all the study and work that went into this, both in the district level and at the county level, shows that this has a very high probability of success. I projected out that it's as early as 5 to 7 years that the debt could be completely paid off. And I am enormously grateful to Rob Zarneski, Kathy Kolopanovich, and the Jamesburg Board of Education and Administration for offering to meet us on this agreement. We solved a problem that the state created, that the state failed to address, that the state failed to alleviate by ourselves, and that deserves a great amount of accolades.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Asif from One Walker Court, and actually I have a request, but I'll apologize before I say that because I'm coming to this meeting for the first time, and I don't understand all the workings of it. My request is that the public forum, can it be done before the closed room meeting? Because there are a lot of people who had great ideas which left because it's a school night and they have kids. So just a request. I don't know if this was really required between, but I thought it's not. So again, just a request from me.
We try never to have a closed session this long. It's kind of an anomaly because we had 2 legal issues that we had to discuss.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, Lisa Coutreau, 230 Old Forge Road. I have some additional questions about the redistricting proposal. I'm wondering if it's possible to get the specifics regarding who will be redistricted, what families will be impacted, where they'll be going, like very specific details. Is that going to be made available, posted somewhere, a more complete presentation that we can read and really understand all of the nuts and bolts of the proposal? I feel like we got a high level and it was appreciated to kind of understand a little bit more, but I still have a lot more in detailed questions and I'm wondering where they can be answered. And my second question is, when will a vote be taken?
Well, first of all, right now, there is no plan. We're taking the concept that Mr. Hamoki gave us, which is to redistrict, and we're going to take it to the Buildings and Grounds Committee. They will do their research and ask a lot of questions. If they decide that redistricting is the way to go, then the administration will come up with the plan. Where to redistrict, who to redistrict, where the lines will be drawn, what schools they will be going to. When that happens, and the plan is brought back to the Buildings and Grounds Committee, if it is, and the Buildings and Grounds Committee approves that, then it will come to the full board for approval. But that's a few months down the line. There is nothing specific now that we are looking at.
Okay, so we can confirm tonight that the ad hoc committee's proposal does not include, at this point, any specific locations that people are currently living in. This group will be redistricted, that group will be redistricted.
That is correct.
There's
That is
nothing
correct.
specific at this point.
No, there is not.
Okay, and where does that specific information come from? From the next place it goes to, which is
It
the
goes-
transportation? Will they be the ones that say it should be this group, it should be that group, or who does that?
They will recommend doing a if they
If, right.
recommend doing a redistricting plan, it is up to the administrative team, Dr. I gave you doctor.
Thank you for that. Congratulations, Dennis.
Sorry, that was easy. Mr. Ventrello, Mr. Gorski, our buildings director of facilities, they will all get together and come up with a plan using the recommendations as a tool. And looking at future growth for our district, updating numbers, and then the plan will be able to go back to Buildings and Grounds.
Okay, and will that type of meeting be something open to the public? Where the
Yes.
actual decisions are made of who should be moved and where they should be moved to?
The Buildings and Grounds Committee is always open to the public.
But the meeting that Mr. Ventrello, Mr. Gorski will have, will that be open to the public?
Probably not, because it's not a board responsibility, it's an administrative responsibility.
Okay. So if we wanted to voice our particular concerns about our, area being impacted, where would we direct that to?
And to be sensitive to you, as a matter of fact, is that we talked about this before, is that so we would probably be posting information on the website. I don't see why there can't be, obviously, questions being submitted to the Central Office Administration or even to your building principals as well, too, because decisions do have to be made. It'll impact the entire community. There's no doubt about that.
Right.
But you will be heard, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you.
Hi, Christy Skirby, 8 Summerlin Court. Just want to clarify, because I was part of the ad hoc committee, the presentation that I received, that is not going to Buildings and Grounds. That had the plan that was proposed by Russ Haber. Is that not going to Buildings and Grounds?
That will probably go to the administration for them to use if the Buildings and Grounds Committee decides to go to look at redistricting.
Okay, so it is correct that there is a plan that Russ Haber came up with that did have neighborhoods.
It's not a plan, it's a
recommendation, but it did lay out neighborhoods that would be moved. It did have in there that the 3rd grade would be split between Mill Lake and Woodland. So that is what is going to administration and to Buildings and Grounds?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
Hi, Catherine Crowley. I'm at 56 Spruce Meadows. Is there a time deadline that this redistricting has to be put through by? I mean, it can't be done August 31st. So at what point do you have to make this decision?
If I may. I think that there's a couple things that you have to consider when you're redistricting. First, you should just be aware, as of right now, as a matter of fact, is as the principals actually do their budgets, that process starts in September, goes all the way probably through December when they finally make a final recommendation for budgeting. Principals at that time will have to consider as far as where the students are in the district. As we go into this process, you want to be considerate not only of where the students will be, but also at the same time as far as communicating with the parents, because the parents have to be informed all along the way. I would imagine, and Mr. Homoki said it quite clearly, is that as it's presented now to the board will have to act rather quickly on this. Time is of the essence as far as making the plans, for redistricting, if that's what the board decides to do.
Second, I have heard that this condo unit that is going to be built on Mount Mills is the demographer came up with a crazy small amount of students that would come out from that neighborhood. Is there any plans to have that rechecked? Can you tell me what the numbers are proposed? Because maybe in a better economy, families don't move it, families do not have children that would go to schools in there. But at this economy where people are losing jobs and they would love to move to Monroe. It's a great place to live. And if they have to squeeze their 2 kids and their husband and themselves into a house, into a condo, they will. So I have been hearing that there are not that many students that are supposed to come out of that neighborhood, and I find that very difficult to believe.
Can I comment? Do you have an answer to that?
I believe just to respond to that statement, and I think that Mr. Klein had made mention of this as well. The concern, I believe, from some of the members at the ad hoc committee was that maybe the Mounts Mills area. And obviously that, the expectation was that there was going to be a large amount of kids coming out of that area, and that the demographer's report was not anywhere near that number. The best I can offer to you is the fact that since the board still has not even acted on this yet, is that obviously those numbers will have to be reviewed by the board at that time.
Well, I guess my family's not affected. I'm only here because I do not want to see in 2 years that this board has to come back and say, okay, this community went up and now we have to redistrict again. I don't think that is good for any of the children. I mean, I've had children who have lost their friends, just one. I cannot imagine come September when they lose 10. When Oak Tree left, my daughter never went back to those friends, and they're no longer friends in high school. So that is a relationship that has been severed. And I think that would happen again. And in 2 years later, you're going to come back and say, oh, we're back. I don't think you can do that to the children. And whatever redistricting plan that goes through, I think has to take that into consideration if you're all about the children. Because, as it is, we're asking the children to go through 4 schools before they graduate from here. it's a lot.
Thank you. We'll
Point
certainly
taken.
take that into consideration. Anyone else from the public? Oh, Ms. Arminio?
Oh, so I just as a point of clarification to the public, there have been several different demographic studies. Excluding the one that we have now from the Board of Education, when builders come to the township in the Planning Board and Zoning Board, they're very often required to do what they call a fiscal impact study. Some of those builders that's where the very low numbers of child impacts have been brought to the public. So those numbers have been very skewed. Mr. Zaglarski and Mr. Ryback, and there's some people from the adult communities who have gone to those meetings and challenged those figures, and as a matter of fact, did extensive research and additional studies to challenge the builders' figures, which also were brought to here, and then we did our own demographic study. So the very, very low numbers really have been given from builders, and of course, obviously, it's in the best interest of the builders to say there's going to be very little impact. So I think the public, our demographics are far better, and yet the most recent demographic study, I'm on the ad hoc committee, the demographer admitted that he did not take into consideration the two very large developments. He didn't put them in his study. So kudos to the board and Mr. Homoki for opening that up, and we will probably or the Buildings and Grounds will take into consideration. But I want the public to know it's not the board's demographer that has the low numbers. When developers come to the town, they try to make the most appealing design, and it was their demographers that were challenged by, fortunately, members of the public who frequent the zoning boards and planning board meetings, because that's where the real issues lie. So I just wanted to clarify that.
My name is Jennifer Clark, and I'm at 16 Schindler Lane. And this is the confusing part for the majority of us out here. You're saying there's no plan. However, Ms. Skirby gets up and talks about a plan. So it's very confusing to all of us. You're all saying that there's no plan, but there are specific communities that are being picked out that are saying that they're going to be redistricted. You just agreed to it, but then it's like word semantics. I don't understand it. Like, why is it not being explained what exactly the ad hoc committee is proposing? I know it's a recommendation, but what exactly are they recommending? Build another school, and what is the redistricting plan? Do it right away. Next year? There's not enough information for any of us to even get up here and give a good argument to you as to why. I mean, it's just hearsay, what we've heard on Facebook. I've been one of the people too, had no clue until I just saw this all on Facebook. And I will tell you from what I've learned on Facebook, which seems to be more information than I'm getting here tonight, I don't want to see a first grader. We have a first grader. I have a first grader. Other people have children that are first and fourth grade. It is not fair to take these kids out of these schools, move them over here. You might be there 1 year, you might be there 2 years. When they get to third grade, maybe you're going to be at this school or this school, so we're going to split up your friends again. Then you go back to Woodland, you'll be there for 2 years, then you're going to run over here to the middle school. It's ridiculous. You're supposed to be here for the kids. That's what means the most. You're all voted in here to do what is best for all of our children here. And the plans that we've seen on Facebook, because that's where the only information that we seem to be able to get specifically is not, I don't think anyone here agrees with any of these plans, to split up a third grade, to take these poor children out and move them. Redistricting needs to happen, but it needs to be done at the least amount of effect on these kids. Cause them the least amount of stress. I understand Monroe is growing and everything else and it needs to happen, but it's just not, the recommendations that we're seeing that came out of this, it's just not totally unacceptable. Totally unacceptable.
And I'll go back to Mr. Homoki and the ad hoc committee. He was the chair. The committee asked to have a demographer do a redistricting study. That study was given to the ad hoc committee for them to look at. The recommendation coming out of the ad hoc committee was for the board to look at redistricting.
Right.
That plan, or it's not really a plan, it's a map, will be given to the administration should the Board of Education committee decide to look into redistricting.
Right, but this is our chance to speak now, and none of us have the information that we need.
We don't
in order to
have
be able
any
to
other
speak.
information.
Yeah, but there is specific information. Ms. Skirby just got up here and gave more information than
She
we
was
heard.
on the ad hoc committee. That
Right,
was specific.
but he was the chairman, and we didn't find out anything more until she got up here and said
But
gave
that-
us more specific information. That's what we're asking for. Is more
I know,
specific-
but that plan is not the plan that we're going to use to redistrict. So to send that to the community would be totally wrong on our part for you to think that that's what we're going to do. Nobody said that that's what we're going to do, that study is what is going to be
Okay,
the end
'cause that
result.
study stinks. That is not the way it should be done. That's not the way it should be done. That's not take 2 third grades and put them in 2 different schools. And like I said, those specific grades, first and fourth, are going to be the ones most affected by all of this.
Well, thank you for your comments. We will give them to the administration.
That's great, because that's the only way that we seem to be able to get any information.
Thank you. I'm
Please
sorry
make it
you're-
noted. Thank you.
And Austin?
I would just like to talk. I was at the ad hoc committee as a member of the public. I was not on the ad hoc committee. And there was a distinct plan that was spelled out with boundaries and border lines, what children would go to what school. And there was a lot of pushback from the public, especially the parents there. There was a concern about that. So I too got the impression at the ad hoc committee that the districting plan was actually what Mr. Homoki's group was going to present to the board, which was going to present it to the Buildings and Grounds Committee. I don't understand why a redistricting actual plan was put forth at the ad hoc. And I think that a lot of people thought they were probably voting on that at the ad hoc committee. I know if I were to have voted, I would have thought that. But now it appears that that really wasn't, I don't even know why it would have been presented.
Because the ad hoc committee requested that redistricting survey. It was a request from that committee, unanimous request, that they asked for a redistricting survey. And that's what was given to them.
So
Mr.
the
Gorski?
redistricting survey is different than the demographer's report, is what you're
The
saying.
demographer's report they received,
Use the microphone.
they received a demographer's report early on. The demographer's report gave them the schools and everything. What was in the schools, who was coming in, how many kids they had expected. And then when the idea of redistricting came up, they requested. It wasn't the board, it wasn't the administration, it was the committee who requested a study. Let's have a redistricting study and see how we can make parity through the southern and the middle, the central, and the northern part of Monroe, because it's not, I mean, we're all aware that all the building is in the southern side of the town. We've had parents come up and say, we need to do something about the high classes in the Oak Tree, Applegarth area, where Mill Lake and Woodland classes are not as high as down there. So they had the study done. The study is a tool that will be used in conjunction with some more information that will be needed in order for the administration to make a fair and equitable decision for the kids in our...
That makes total sense, but I have to appreciate the fact that I could understand where this concern is
Yes,
coming from.
I could
Secondly,
too.
Obviously, as a board, we're not doing our job if we're not communicating correctly to the public. Based on that, what I think I would like to see is, can we have something on the website to spell out in very, very detailed terms what exactly the ad hoc committee is going to recommend? What is the next steps? Where's it going to go from there? Because our main function as a board is transparency and input with the public. And obviously, we're failing on that. So I accept the failure, but now we have to correct that going forward.
Yes, we'll put something up there.
Kathy, I would just like to reiterate what was said by Mr. Notstein. There were two recommendations made by the report, the Russ Haber report. One was a timeline for building construction, and the other one was an actual plan that he came up with boundaries and everything else for redistricting. I just want to let everybody know that the redistricting plan was not accepted by the committee, okay? But the committee did say, if we have to redistrict, which will be up to you, please keep the sister cities or sister schools intact. So it was not accepted. The only thing that was accepted on the first part was that there should be a building program. No dates or anything like that. So I just want to tell people that nothing was accepted, and if you hear there is a plan, but the plan was not accepted by the committee, nor is it accepted by the board. The board can use it as you see fit. Okay, I think it's very important that people understand that we did not approve either one of those recommendations.
Mr. Homoki, is it fair to say that the redistricting plan that was put together by Ross Haber utilized the demographic information contained in the enrollment report and justified the need for redistricting, which is just the most efficient use of the district schools by reallocating students where there is a vacancy from where there is overcrowding, and that he further recommended it, but it was just part of the substantiation of the need to redistrict, which is inherently obvious to the committee?
It's absolutely correct. It's absolutely correct.
Ms. Sarminia?
Yeah, I mean, I think what the public would like, and I think I tried to allude to it before, is that we can put on the website, we contracted a study, we paid for the study, it's public record. Let's put it on the website and say, this is merely a study. Yes, there was a redistricting plan that we paid for because we felt the need to be informed, and it is not something that has, whatever the language is, to inform the public that this is exactly what happened, and this is just the beginning of the discussion.
Of the
I think
process,
that's all the public wants to know. And there's no reason for it not to be so. I mean, it's public record. Anyone should be able to get a copy of it, but it should be on the website to make it easier for people. And Mr. Notstein said it. It's about transparency. It's about starting the discussion. And at the ad hoc committee, we talked about it. And I think one of the reasons why I was worried about acting upon the recommendations was because of the miscommunication that, yes, we contracted for a study, people should know about it, but it's not necessarily something we're moving forward with until we do further study. So please make it clear on the website what exactly it is, and then we can have a community discussion, which is really what we're looking for to begin with.
Let's finish our public forum.
Maureen Drabik, 19 Treetops Drive. I just have one question. Is this study complete with this company, with Ross Haber?
Is the study complete?
Is it completed? Are we done? Have we paid him?
Yes.
Okay, because there is a letter from their company on the website showing that they, for a fee for $6,000 for continued working with the board for the 2014-15 school year. So that tells me it's not complete.
Madam?
That is on the website, I found it.
The study is complete. The board can ask Ross Haber to update the report depending on the October 15th enrollment information, which is very germane to the report. That hasn't been suggested yet. And I can't say with certainty if Ross Haber has been paid or not. I know he's emailed me the invoice, but I can't say with certainty it's been processed.
Okay, but this is for the upcoming year, though, this current year. Is during these meetings with the next phase of this, when it goes to the buildings and facilities,
Buildings and grounds.
will he be presenting what was already given to what you have now, or is he going to update for those meetings?
We can request that if the Buildings and Grounds Committee so desires to request an update, which we probably would.
Okay, because you said enrollment numbers aren't complete until.
Well, I know the study was done in the spring, and the numbers were different when we talked to him in September.
Okay, so he really should do an updated version.
Absolutely.
Okay,
We
thank
would
you.
need to do an update.
Hi, Ghazala Bora. I live on One Miko Drive, and I'm kind of going to reference back to what was mentioned about one of the demographers whose report was used by the ad hoc committee, and for lack of a better word, you said it was an unreliable number, the Mount Mills number that we're talking about, the new development. So if the demographer's report is kind of inaccurate or unreliable, why has that been factored into a recommendation given by the ad hoc committee? Why is that recommendation not being thrown out before giving to the Board of Ed? Because it's out there now.
Ma'am, Madam, may I address that?
Sure.
The information on the developments and
The demographers, right?
the information specifically on the developments, how many units and so on,
Right.
was directly provided by the township. From that information, Ross Haber extrapolated the number of students that would be coming from there using his own method, not the method that the builders use.
Right.
And
I'm going to put the numbers in front of you. From what I know, what all of us know, we are projecting about 500 homes.
Oh, ma'am, regarding the Mounts Mills, there seems to be some question about whether that's valid. That was not presented to us from the township in the form that it's being presented on Facebook.
True,
So we are
and I
reaching out to
agree.
the township to validate that, but as of now, we have no confirmation of that. I believe that Mr. Haber's report is materially accurate and can be relied upon for the purpose of understanding that we need to redistrict and we need to plan for a bond referendum, and that is all the committee recommended tonight.
And our understanding as from the information, and I'm not saying Facebook, from the information given to us by the people on the ad hoc committee, was that that number was used in the redistricting plan to move children to Mill Lake, because that's the only projected number of kids coming out of that development going into Mill Lake and Woodland School. That if that number is wrong, we are going to end up having that, and I'm talking about the plan that has been recommended to the board. We're going to have another crisis in our hands in a year's time when 150 students kids come out of that development and go into Mill Lake. So I'm sorry to go through this all over again, but what I'm trying to say is that inaccurate information was used for that recommendation. And I know you guys are going to make it out public for us, but why is that recommendation even with the Board of Ed, knowing that that information is not, those numbers are not right? And I know you just told me that you have accurate information.
Madam, to a point of correction, there is no confirmation that any of the information in Ross Haber's report was incorrect. I want to be clear about that. The report is materially correct and accurate. It projects enrollment information, which is inherently subject to variation. But the development information that we have was recently provided by the township, and we believe we can rely on it for accurate numbers based upon the cohort survival method used by Ross Haber. There is no incorrect information that we're relying upon to determine that we need to redistrict.
So the number is wrong? 5 out of 500 homes, 14 kids will be going to the school. Is that number something that we are making up, or was that on the report?
That's your statement. I'm telling you that the information we have from the township on the developments was provided by the township. We're relying on it for the report. The enrollment then is projected from Ross Haber, and we believe it to be completely reliable and justifying that there is a need to redistrict, period.
And I hope you're right, but as a parent, I would like the board to take recommendations based on reliable facts. Thank you.
I will say, though, too, we will be putting all the information and numbers, whatever you need, on our website, and I think that would be more reliable than looking at Facebook and having people write things and, right. So just because it's on Facebook doesn't make it true. And your time is up, so we have to go to the,
Yeah, like I said, not just Facebook, it's members.
I
of the ad
understand.
hoc committee
Thank you.
Who were telling us the numbers.
let's,
Hi, this is Sanjeev Hegde, 12 Wedgwood Court. What's becoming apparent in all these discussions is that there is certainly a plan, and there is some hesitancy in making it public. And now we agree that it's going to go on the website, which is good. But as a citizen of Monroe Township, how do I know what are the next steps that you're going to have in this process before you? So what I'm gathering is that there is hesitancy in basically saying that, look, we are going to plan this out over the next month or 6 months or a year, and this is how it's going to work. And I also heard superintendent saying that the public's voice will be heard. My question is, how can the public be more informed, or how do I know? Because I can't do these, come to these meetings every time this happens. But if I have a proper schedule from you guys, maybe I can attend those and raise my concerns, right? And the second part is, when the superintendent says the public's voice will be heard, in what form will that be? Is this a form we come back and talk about it based on recommendation, or there is some kind of a voting, or what is that?
what we will do is, like I said, go to the Buildings and Grounds Committee. That committee, when it's scheduled, will be on the website. So everybody will know that that committee is scheduled. Anybody can come to that committee and watch the deliberations. We will also have times during public forum when we will open it up. We might, I'm not saying we will, but we probably should have a specific agenda item for redistricting, where we give the public just time to speak about just redistricting. We do that with the budget. We've done that with other major initiatives that we do. So it would probably be very feasible for us to have a night where we just have a redistricting agenda item where the public can speak to whatever, you get your 3 minutes, you just tell us what you want, and not a,
Okay, that's perfect.
And again, we will try to keep as much on the website as possible.
Okay, is there a schedule of these meetings specifically on this topic that I can find out? I mean,
it will be on the website. There is no meeting scheduled right now for November. But if you go under the Board of Education on the website, we have all our committees listed, and we will have dates when the committee will be meeting, where, time, and place.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Denise Caprio, 8 Boxwood Drive. Just a clarifying question. When you go to the Buildings and Grounds, are you going in with a clean slate where they go and they're going to look at redistricting regardless of what their proposal was? So starting from scratch?
Right. We will go to the Buildings and Grounds Committee. It will be an agenda item. We will talk about the need or the responsibilities of what redistricting would be, and they'll decide, yes, we need to look at this further, or no, we're not going to redistrict.
So that map or that proposal that was identified won't necessarily go to them. It'll be almost like...
It could be part of their decision when they look at the map, so they know where the students are. But it's not that committee that will be creating the redistricting plan.
I guess I'm wondering, when they look at this, do they already have a pre-thought of, well, this is what they already identified, so we're going to go with that? Or we're going to say, let's look at this from scratch and say, okay, considering the homes and the numbers might have been wrong, and we're starting.
Knowing our committees, they ask a lot of questions before they make any decisions.
Okay, because I think we might have thought that something's already going forward, and it's not.
Right.
Okay.
Right. I know, we're going to finish public forum first.
I know it's late. I just want to change the subject a minute and touch
you-
on Stephen Ryback, 23 Riviera Drive. I'm sorry. Touch on what Michelle Arminio said. When the developers submit fiscal impact analyses, the development that I'll use as an example, I'm really talking to you, I know, but I want the public to know it's really for them as well, is the one on Mounts Mills at 613. There's a development of 522 units, yet the developer's demographer, developer is Jack Morris. His demographer used a study that was 10 years old and said it would only bring 80 students to the school, which is ridiculous. 522 units is going to bring 80 students to the school. He's building another large development of 749 units, and he said that's going to bring around 220 students to the school, which is out of balance with his first one and just as ridiculous. What we need, and this is something that I think all of us, especially you and the public, have the power to do, is get our town to create a standard, a template, so that if builders want to build a development here, they have to use the information we give. They have to use our multipliers, and so that we know that the tax revenue, the anticipated tax revenue, would be on target, and that we know the numbers of students would not be as outrageous as the ones that we're getting. Thank you.
If you ask him about Jamesburg again, I'm getting up.
Listen, my version of brief and
Name
Mr. Accountant's
and address,
version of brief
please.
are widely, vastly different, Mike. Brief. Holy cow. Lou Masters, 9 McKellar Court. Mr. Rybeck said is exactly right. Being on the zoning board, there's actually, it's called a coefficient. And a while back when JSM was going in, their coefficient was 0.15. So they said for every home that you build, there's 0.15 kids going in, which was wildly crazy. Mayor Pucci at that time was pushing for the township to adopt a similar coefficient, but it was 0.75. Now what happens is you can create whatever coefficient you want. What it relates back to is to try to assess an impact fee on a developer is illegal. So you can say whatever you want. We could say there's 8,000 kids coming out, and we can go to Mike and say, guess what, 8,000. All right, too bad. We can't do it. In the state of New Jersey, what you're talking about is against the law. What you really got to do is you got to change the law. You have to allow impact fees again. The coefficient is nothing right now if you can't link that to a monetary value based on an impact fee, period. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public?
Hi, this is Sanjeev Hegde again, 12 Wedgwood Court. I'm just trying to, I'm finding it difficult that the people who are sitting here are coming up with these recommendations, saying that when the plan for redistricting and things like that are made, or when the new building permits are handed out, that we should have a formula as to how the number of students that are going to be increased is estimated, right? Why wouldn't that be done by a school board like yours?
Can I take that?
Sure.
Number one, the mathematics that's involved in that and the formulas are very scientific. Number two, we can do that in the business office and give you an enrollment projection. I've done them before just for budgetary purposes, but it lacks objectivity, whereas an outside consultant can bring objectivity to a professionally prepared report for the board. That's the difference.
I understood, but here it seems like there is a basic, there is basic stuff that public who doesn't attend these meetings on a regular basis can relate to in like half an hour, compared to you guys are in and out, into this every day and day out. So I'm just surprised that this is coming to the public, coming from public's opinion as opposed to coming from you guys. Because we as taxpayers rely on you guys, right? We understand we elected you, and we expect something like that to happen out of you, as opposed to sitting and saying, hey, listen, I'm on the education board. I get a recommendation. I basically, manage the school side of things. But when the new houses are built, I have no say in it, right?
You're right. We have no say in the development of this community. Our responsibility is to educate every child that comes into Monroe Township, every child. But we don't have anything to do with the development of the community. So it's the township who approves everything based on the master plan, the zoning board, the planning board. They are aware of our schools and how overcrowded they are, but I know that they have to follow certain rules and regulations, just as the Board of Education has to follow rules and regulations.
Right. I'm just saying that there is, I believe that there is no proactive effort from, again, here, I see that there is no proactive measure in questioning these things. When basically a survey is made, take it and run with it, as opposed to questioning some of the basic stuff, which us as public have to do it. I mean, sitting
Well,
here,
we were trying to be proactive by creating an ad hoc committee and getting a recommendation from the community as to what they would support. Because we have to do something, our options are very limited, whether we redistrict, whether we get trailers again, or we go with a referendum to build something to add classroom space to our district. Anyone else?
I would just like to make one clarification. Remember, the public asked about the closed session resolution. The closed session resolution with the MTEA on today's agenda was distributed on Monday afternoon, and the resolution just states that the MTEA negotiations would occur in closed session. So there was no agenda item that said an action would be taken. I mean, we all know that if the action is resolved in closed session, an action could be taken. But again, there was another impression on there. The other thing is, when Mr. Gorski, Madam President, could you ask Mr. Gorski when we went into closed session, what time that was this evening?
Oh, he might know what time.
Madam,
Approximately.
we went into closed session at 8:19 p.m.
Okay. I would just like the public to know that's when those of us who were not on the negotiation committee first saw the contract, just as a matter of fact. That was the first time we were able to see and take a look at the paperwork and the documentation on the contract. And as a board member representing the public, I just felt, and I requested a sufficient review of the documents in order to make a very informed decision how to move forward with the agreement. After all, it's a 3-year contract. It affects many people. And to receive it this evening with all the documentation necessary, I just wanted the public to be aware of that. Thank you.
Can I say something, please?
Mr. Chiarella?
Yeah. I think that, I don't know what happened here with the ad hoc committee and where the wires were crossed, but I know that I was even receiving questions about it. I had no idea. As a board member, I had no idea. So I could imagine how confused they were, because I didn't even know. And I was getting maps, and I was getting told that I was shown that my kids were even being redistricted, and I had no idea what was going on. And then I was told that we were voting on it at this meeting, and I had no idea that, except to see the ad hoc, the bullet point there. But somewhere, either the stream of thought changed, or there was just a big miscommunication error. But from what I understand, there were board members as part of that ad hoc committee that thought that they were voting for something that was going to be brought here tonight that would cause redistricting to happen. So some of the things that I want to know is, if they thought that, who voted for it, number one, and then why was it brought to us in this, in a way now that the public is confused about, I'm confused about. I think that one of the things that we really need to do is just to make sure that we're communicating to all the parties, make sure that the PTAs and the PTOs are aware, to make sure that we also have emails going out. I get 19,000, if it snows a little bit or there's a little bit of ice, or I get a global connect, I get all kinds of stuff going on. I think we need to send something out to the public saying you're not being redistricted. And then, just to answer some of the questions from some of the people that came up about the committee, I'm on buildings and grounds for now. I'm off the board in January. But I can tell you that some of the things that I would look at is, what are we doing as far as trailers? And I know that the T word's a bad word. We just got rid of the trailers. Now we're going to bring them back. But we have to have a way to house these children. But I would think that the main thing that we need to do is take the children into account before we move them around, because people are absolutely right. And you take an 8-year-old child, and you take them away from their friends. You're ripping their whole life apart. They might never make those relationships back again. And we just need to really think about that before we take the politically expedient route, or there's just a thing that's going to make an overcrowding situation go away.
Well, I do know that, Mr. Ventrello, you had a meeting yesterday with the PTO presidents?
Yes.
And the redistricting was discussed in that meeting.
There was.
So hopefully they're bringing that information back to their PTOs and their memberships. And again, I think when something is written on Facebook and people believe that when it's not true, it causes a lot of issues.
But it gets on the Facebook
does.
because it's fed because of a lack of information. So
Right.
Order.
What we can do and what we heard tonight was the fact that obviously there was a lack of communication and there's a need for more communication. So you can hear it from me right now is the fact that obviously tomorrow I'll be working with Mr. Gorski and other people as well too, and we'll make sure as the fact that information is on the webpage, and we'll just update that obviously as the Buildings and Grounds Committee meets, as information is shared with them, as people want to also, and you heard Kathy say this, as far as maybe at public forums, is that, you know, we can maybe address those concerns at that time as well too. So the message that I received tonight was the fact that we need more communication. There's no doubt about that. But I do want to emphasize to you is the fact that there is a timeline involved here. If redistricting is needed, tough decisions have to be made. At the same time as the fact that as you think about those tough decisions that have to be made, again, I can attest personally, as we did Brookside, that was a redistricting, as Oak Tree was a redistricting, as Applegarth was a redistricting. Yes, obviously at times it's because of the fact that friendships are going to be severed, because of the fact that obviously one kid is going there and one kid is going there. I get that. But at the same time, you need to understand is that the board's responsibility is to educate all the children. You'll have the other side of that fence where, you know what, as Mr. Chiarella was just saying, bring in trailers. I'd like to see that conversation with everybody raising taxes. If that's the case, then you make that case to the Board of Education. But at the same time, you also need to understand is the fact that redistricting has to take place. If you build another school in a couple more years, and it might take 2 to 3 years to build that school, will you be redistricting again? The answer is yes. That's just part of the growth. That's what I was trying to present to you before. Either you're getting it on the side going up because you're a thriving community, or you're getting it on the side going down because of the fact that you're downsizing the community. Either way, but redistricting, this is not new when you think about it. The last redistricting actually took effect, but it didn't impact you maybe, but obviously for those Oak Tree parents, it impacted them as they went to Applegarth School. Redistricting is always going to be taking place in a thriving community. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public before we close public forum? Okay, we will close public forum. And our next scheduled Board of Education meeting.
Do you need a motion to accept his report?
Do we need a motion to accept his report?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. I need a motion and a second to accept Mr.
I move to accept the ad hoc committee's report.
Mr. Kaufman, who's seconding that? Anybody? Mr. Nostane, any comments or questions? Can we just, do we need a roll call?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Braverman is opposed. Abstentions? Then the motion passed and we accept the report. Thank you, Mr. Kaufman.
Without a problem.
Our next scheduled Board of Education meeting, Wednesday, November 19, 2014, 7 o'clock p.m. at the Monroe Township High School. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Mr. Chiarella, Mr. Minio, all in favor? All in favor?
Aye. Good night. Aye, aye, aye.
Aye, aye, aye.